podcast where three bearded film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time. My name is Luke Condor with a Kate. I'm joined by my regular co-hosts, Mr.
Ben Errington.
Oh, he's in there. And Mr.
Jump right in.
Andy Conduit Turner. Hello, everybody.
How are we doing?
Yeah,
Hello. Good.
Feeling pretty good about that 5-star review we just got.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What's
Right
this
in
here?
there. Yeah, we got a nice little
5
5-star
stars.
review.
It's nice to get 5 stars, unless it's out of 10. Then what happens?
But
Well,
in
I
this
think it's
case, just out of 5. So,
it's good.
yeah.
So,
and it's happy. Even when there's constructive stuff, I will respond to that if there's 5 stars. You put 4 stars in constructive. Oh, don't know. I feel I've lost a bit of motivation to change. But 5 stars.
I'll change. I'll do anything for you for 5 stars. So a user on Apple Podcasts, LCO77.
You know you are, LCO.
You know who you are if you're listening. Lovely 5-star review, extensive review as well, which is always good, because sometimes they've only got a couple of words. You're a bit
It's
like,
a lengthy one, isn't it?
Did they really enjoy it?
Yeah.
I won't read all of it out, but basically the crux of it says the sign of a good podcast on films is one where you run out of episodes to listen to on films they've watched and probably move on to episodes that have no intention of seeing the films. Really entertaining stuff and props as first podcast of the horror variety, for that matter, to mention British children's TV legend Dave Benson Phillips. I'm not sure exactly what episode that was.
Every other one.
Yeah, get your own back has definitely come up. Zippy from Rainbow came up in Spiral. I feel that's quite recent. Dave Benson Phillips.
Yeah, Dave Benson Phillips. I think we'd have remembered it. But yeah, lovely 5 stars for that. And thanks very much for listening and taking the time to review the podcast as well, because that's always good. Good for the old algorithms and for probably Dave Benson Phillips's. He Googles his name at least 10 times an hour. So that's another little hit for him. You can add that to the list.
Love you, Dave.
Yeah. If you want to leave a review, and we will read it out live on the air, go to iTunes or Podchaser or what are the other ones? Podcast Addict, Podmania, Bubble.
Poddle Bubble.
I don't know.
Pod and me. I don't know. Just making them up now.
Wherever you get your podcasts from, if there's a review button, click on that. 5 stars, unless it's out of 10, in which case 10, if you don't mind, you could. Leave us a little review for what you like. I know this week's reviewer said, not complaining, but if we could sometimes get to the horror stuff a bit quicker, he'd be happy. So we will. We're going to be efficient today.
Are we doing that just because we feel pressured to do that, or are we just?
I feel really pressured.
I was going to do it. I was going to do it anyway. It's coincidental. It shows how in tune we are with the people.
We're very in tune with our audience at all times.
Yeah. So if you want us to be in tune with you, leave us a message, and unless what you want is unreasonable or illegal, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. We'll always give it a go.
I feel
even if it is
like
illegal.
the turd of Damocles dangling above my head, ready to drop at any point.
You feel like you're going to get gunged, like Dave Benson Phillips would like to do to people on Get Your Own Back. What was the concept of Get Your Own Back? Was it Get Your Own Back on like a family member who'd done you wrong?
It was like John Wick for children.
Yeah.
What? It wasn't anything like sinister, was it? It was always like,
my really sinister.
My dad makes me tidy my room.
My teacher in the face.
Yeah,
it was like that. Yeah,
it was never anything awful, like I'm being abused. It was like, it was very much like, my teacher sets us homework even on a Friday. Your teacher cares about your future, Jimmy from Somerset. Get over it. But
get him in and get him gunged.
Yeah, get him in and get him gunged. Or sometimes it'd be like, my gross older brother makes me smell his farts or something awful like that. So you get him, and then you do a series.
My dad's sleeping with the neighbour.
My dad shouts too much.
Yeah, who was the presenter in that one?
Dave Benson Phillips.
That's a Dave Benson Phillips number.
That's a Dave Benson Phillips special. Cool.
Yeah, and you gunge him if you succeed. It's no fun house, but good show.
I always
horror
wanted
stuff.
to get gunged. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
What? Sorry. We will get onto horror stuff. What went into the gunge? What was the main ingredient of gunge? I mean, I guess water.
Teenagers.
Just toxic waste.
Toxic waste and teenage secretions.
The amount of Ninja Turtles that were created by that TV show is unparalleled. Or ninja humans, because that's how it works, isn't it? It just takes your DNA and just makes it ninja.
Yeah. Just ninjarizes you.
Just ninjarizes you.
In ancient Japan, that's how ninjas were actually formed. You would hear some, myths and legends about, extensive training, a complete life dedicated to following the arts of ninjutsu. Actually, just guns, whazz them in there, pop out.
Yeah.
Classic. It was like a factory process. Get them in, gun jump, get them out. Get them out and out doing ninja stuff. All right, get out there.
And then one of your 4 main personality traits would emerge. Either you're a leader, you do machines, you're cool but rude, or you're a party dude. No other personalities exist.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I think I always liked Raphael, but I think I was
blinded by the badassery.
You work with computers, Luke. You're a Donatello. Just accept it.
I'm a Donatello. That's true.
What's your weapon? It's just a stick.
Best one in video games, though. Best range.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, horror stuff. So,
what's the horror news, Ben?
Screenshots. Did you see that?
I did.
Scholaro, the one with the tiny lungs. She's playing. What's the face? What's the flavor?
Redfield.
From Crawl. I got you. So Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City. The first images from the new live action movie. Got Claire Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy, and also an image of like Lisa Trevor from the first game, the remake of the first game. First live action iteration of her as a creature / villain. But yeah, it looks like they've gone very, very close to the games in terms of the design of the characters. I guess mainly for the men. The character playing Jill, the actress playing Jill, and the actress playing Claire. Yeah, they look like them, but they've seemed to have gone for Leon and Chris, almost identical costumes from the games, which is very cool. But yeah,
and they're doing 1 and 2, Resident Evil 1 and 2 as part of the
1 and 2, like side by side, I guess, sort of like parallel.
Yeah.
So there's going to be Spencer Mansion and Raccoon City Police Station action. Yeah, so looking forward to it. We should be seeing some kind of trailer soon, right? Because I think the games are supposed to be released.
It's out in December, right? It's
film release in November, December.
Yeah. Q4. And with these things coming out, I imagine somewhere in LA there is an aspiring actress with kind of a sexy vampire look who's thinking, right, in about 6 seasons' time, now's my time to shine. Learn to use stilts now.
Learn to use stilts now. This is the movie, though, isn't it? This isn't the
not
TV
the
show.
Series, because the series is the OC one, right?
Yeah, that's right,
the Riverdale one. But are they gonna link together, right? Are they
no, because they've got different actors playing Albert Wesker.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's Bad Dad Dirty Wesker in the first one in the series.
And this one is the half man, half ape man from Umbrella Academy playing Albert Wesker. So very different, very different takes on the character. It looks like we're gonna get. But yeah, any new Resident Evil content is lovely because
it's all right by me.
Can't really go wrong. Well, it can go wrong.
Did you finish the Netflix series, Ben?
Yeah, it was pretty short. There was only a few episodes and they were like 30 minutes each, so bash them out. But yeah, not good. Bit naff, bit lame. Wasn't all that enamored by it. Did you?
I've watched the first one, but I fell asleep in the last few minutes, and then I didn't quite catch the end. So now I'm gonna have to go and technically restart it. It's a whole thing. It's gonna be difficult. And then the TV remote isn't responsive.
Oh no!
Yeah,
the dog
didn't like it at all.
There's a zombie. The dog hated it. There's a zombie dog in with you now.
Turn this shit off. Yeah.
So put my stories on. Sons and Daughters, Shortland Street. Yeah, he's not a fan.
Wishbone.
Wishbone.
Classic.
Wishbone forever. Yeah. What else is in the? What else is in the news?
So other news is the Fede Alvarez produced Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The new movie is going to be on Netflix. So it doesn't look like it's getting a theatrical release. It's going straight to Netflix, which, could be an inspired choice. Movies tend to do really well when released on Netflix anyway. So
When's that due?
that'd be cool. Good question. I don't know. It was filmed last year. So it's on its way.
It might
There we
be
go,
imminent,
on its
right?
way. Yeah. It might be imminent. We've seen a poster, which is kind of looks a bit like the art in today's movie, Candyman. That is just like a sort of painting of Leatherface.
It's like a Francis Bacon-y looking painting, isn't it?
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of arty horrors going on at the minute, which I mean, I quite enjoy the aesthetic of it, but that definitely seems to be of a current vibe, and especially in today's film, in Candyman.
Yeah. I like it there. I think it works well. Couple of other bits of news is Salem's Lot movie. Mackenzie Lee, Bill Camp, and Spencer Treat Clark join the cast of the new adaptation of Salem's Lot. I did say Salem's Lot, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah.
Which
I
one
felt-
was
I
playing?
felt like
3 times now, I think.
If you
Which
say
one
it
was
2
playing the
more
Bluetooth
times in a
and
mirror,
Man?
yeah.
Which one's
So,
playing old Bluetoothy in that one? Which of those actors, or hasn't been announced yet?
Yeah, I don't think that. No, well, the only name I recognize on that is Spencer Treat Clark, who plays Bruce Willis's son in Unbreakable. He's also in Glass, so he's got like quite a distinctive face. I reckon if you vamped him up and gave him the
What's
old
his
long
name?
tooth,
Spencer Treat Willis.
Treat Clark, he's like, what can my middle name be to get people really talking about me? I'm gonna call myself Treat.
So what's he to work with? It's a treat. Oh,
He's an
What is
absolute
it?
treat.
Treat Williams.
Oh yeah, of course.
Well,
Everyone's a treat.
Is it Treat Williams? There's that guy called Treat. Oh, that guy. The Unbreakable Kid. That
The
was his nickname
Unbreakable
in school.
Kid, the one who's like, bloody bench press even more. Let's hang a paint can on the end of each side of it, trying to kill his dad.
an enabler.
An
Yeah.
enabler trying to kill his
I,
dad.
I like him. I'm looking forward to it. The only problem I ever had with Salem's Lot is those teeth look a bit impractically long. Their layer of the white one levels of too long. I feel like, you have to be careful when you're a kid. Well, you don't have to be careful. The rabbit has to be careful. If you have a rabbit or or rodent pet, you've got to give them something to chew. Otherwise, the vets tell you their teeth will grow too long and curl up into their brain.
Yeah, that's his alley.
I
Curl up into the brain.
Yeah.
It sounds like you make it sound like it's overnight. Oh,
No,
what?
yeah.
Oh, he's
They've got
he's
to
gone.
they've
Teeth
got to
in the
constantly
brain.
be chewing. It feels like that's what's happening to that vampire. He's not been chewing enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's his name? Barden.
Billy
Can't remember.
Barden.
But
Long
yeah.
tooth.
Old long
that's-
tooth. Yeah.
That's that. The only other piece of news is in regards to today's film, Candyman director Nia DaCosta has made history by becoming the first Black woman to have a film open at number 1 on the North American box office chart, which obviously is an amazing achievement. So I thought I'd bring that to the attention. I think Candyman's made like $22 million in its first weekend in US cinemas. Not sure about UK or Europe, but yeah, loads of good things happening for the horror. I mean, it's just a great thing for the horror genre as well. I think about how many records have sort of been broken like that with Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions as well, putting horror sort of in the limelight in terms of the awards ceremonies as well. So all really exciting stuff for horror.
They were leaning hard into the just Jordan Peele aspect of this, though, weren't they? In all the marketing, they're saying, "Oh, it's Jordan Peele's latest film."
Yeah, to the point where
which is understandable
I saw a lot of people saying Jordan Peele's Candyman. It's like, I mean, it is kind of frustrating, but it's also his name has obviously become quite a big thing for films to be attached to now.
Yeah, I totally get it. He's a big name in the genre, and you would definitely use that to get people into the film, because I feel like even a casual audience member at this point will have a good idea of who Jordan Peele is. But you want to make sure it doesn't take away from, say, Nia DaCosta, who's actually directed this movie, because as we'll cover, there's some really phenomenal work in it, and it's great to see some recognition. You know, horror movie of any type hitting #1 in the box office outside of Halloween week is a fantastic achievement. And then actually to see long overlooked, like, you know, creators in terms of like demographics and, you know, representative of different communities and so on, actually getting, you know, not just a star in these movies or be a part of it, but actually making the creative decisions. Does Nia DaCosta, is she writer director or is she only directing the more writing?
With Jordan
Co-written,
Peele
yeah,
and someone else.
So,
but I mean, I think it's great because, you know, the studio could have easily gone. Jordan Peele's a huge, like almost a household name at the moment. We're rebooting. I know it's a sequel, but, you know, we're rebooting a franchise, major horror franchise. Let's attach him to it. So, I mean, it's a good shout that they've given it to somebody who I guess is relatively unknown. I know she's made a few movies. She made only one other feature credit for a movie called Little Woods. So yeah.
But that's great. And I don't get the feeling of this, that this is like a Poltergeist Hooper Spielberg thing where, you know, Jordan Peele just happened to be on set standing near the director's chair. He definitely didn't direct it. I don't get that feeling at all. I think there is a very different feeling from this movie. It doesn't feel like it has the same hand in direction as you have from Jordan Peele's movie. It does feel very uniquely Nia DaCosta's film. So yeah.
And we've got two major players now, in terms of directors of color who are like on the scene now. So who knows what that's going to mean for the future of the genre as well. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for Nope, mainly because of the name. There was even a moment where a character said the word Nope in this movie, and it made me think of that film. And I was like, yeah, even though I know nothing about it, looking forward to that too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I love to see these different takes as well, because bearing in mind, we sometimes talk about the number of movies you guys mostly, me more recently, like we're approaching 200 here, episodes, and like 200 movies or thereabouts that you guys have covered. And yet I'm still surprised at how many times we'll be chatting about something and be like, oh God, we haven't done that yet. Or we've done very few sequels, which is a huge thing in horror, right? There are series that run to 10 beyond numbers. And we've done so few sequels as well. Like, this isn't in a huge genre of movies. And, you know, it could be said that you do see some tropes and, you know, similar voices and similar experiences come up time and time again. So it is really great when you actually get a really unique take on something or very different take on something. And sometimes we get the hit of that by looking at films that are produced outside of the US, particularly, you know, on a small level when you look at US versus European cinema, more pronounced when you look at some films that come out of, you know, sort of from Asia and so on. But it's really nice even to see in US produced movies a little bit more diversity in the experiences and the voices that come through, because it just means you've got more interesting films to watch. And, you know, everyone's going to have their favorites, but what a great time.
Definitely a great time. And also in terms of the original Candyman, which is directed by Bernard Rose, that story and then this story is a film essentially about Black trauma. So to have the film be through the eyes of a Black filmmaker as well, I think is very important. And I think something that I really took away from this viewing of this film as well. So plenty to discuss.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think. Sorry, Ben, you finish.
I mean, I was literally going to move on from that, but you carry on if you got.
Yeah, just to finish that. I think I saw on. I'm not sure it was Facebook or Twitter this one. I don't have the name to credit it, but someone was saying that he was talking to his sister, having seen Candyman, the original, many years ago, and saying like, oh, so Candyman is, you know, he's the character of the Candyman. In the past, he was basically brutally murdered. He was a Black man who was murdered by a group of white people who tortured and murdered him. And then he came back as a ghost, and then he kills other black people in a predominantly black community in the 1980s. And his sister was like, yeah, and said, oh, why? Well, why is that the case? Is it because the book that it was based on and the film was written by a white guy? And like it's done lighthearted, but then you do think, yeah, maybe there is a thing. And I think this film, we'll talk about it, does a lot to tie in what is a reasonably disparate series between Candyman's 1 and 3. Candymans. It does a lot to tie all of those disparate parts of the franchise together and then give it a point of view that feels more authentic to the community it represents, and that are primarily involved in the story.
And has anybody seen anything else this week that's worth mentioning?
Well, so how I felt about Riverdale, and it was something I brought up many times in the past. Like there was a tone to Riverdale that I just didn't like. Me and my fiance decided we'll taking turns. I'll pick a TV show, we'll watch that together, and then she'll pick a TV show and watch that together. And her choice was Riverdale. She really likes it, and we watched it all 5 seasons of it. And I will tell you, it's not as bad as I thought it was.
Oh wow!
It's actually, I mean, it's quite inert. Like it's harmless. Like it's not going to change your life or anything, but it is quite compelling. In the way that TV shows are, like they know exactly how to lure you in and hook you to watch another episode. And there's loads of like little horror movie references. There's like David Lynch references all the way through, which are always quite fun. And there's a surprising amount of like serial killers in this small town. Like every season, there's a new serial killer doing dodgy stuff. And there's like loads of nods to like slasher films and X-Files at times. There's aliens in there. It's redonkulous. It's a redonkulous series, but it's quite fun. It's what I would say is for ages I kept saying, I hate TV shows that are over 8 episodes per season because I always felt there's just so much filler. But I will say it's been quite nice to just every time about 6 o'clock we're eating dinner and we just shove Riverdale on and we just hang out, and it doesn't matter if we're taking everything in, if that makes sense. We're just sort of chilling out together watching this TV show, and it became like a nice hangout routine thing that we did. So it was quite nice having that familiarity every single day.
You've changed your viewpoint on like
So, Luke,
two things there.
What is yours and Cat's Riverdale podcast going to be called?
Got to be something Hangout. You mentioned the word Hangout like at least 4 times then.
Riverdale Hangout.
Riverdale Hangout. Come on, what else is there to?
What else is there going to be? I give it a solid
B minus.
B minus.
B minus. Classic. I'm showing my ignorance of the source material. Riverdale is Archie comics, right? Effectively. Yeah. So is Archie in it himself? Is Archie a character that's in it?
He's like the main.
And Betty and Veronica in it. Have they met the Predator? Have they met the Punisher? The main Archie crossovers I'm aware of. Archie meets the Predator and Archie versus the Punisher. It is weird because I feel like they've gone, okay, we want to do modern day Riverdale, but modern day Archie comics, sorry. But the thing that sells really well for Archie comics are these darker takes on those characters. So it's almost like they've gone, let's do Archie as a TV show, but take inspiration and the vibes from Afterlife of Archie, whatever the other one. There's like Archie meets Kiss. For some reason, that's one comic book crossover. There's like all these kind of crazy and there's like the Sabrina TV show, which is all set in the same universe as well, which is quite peculiar. Have you watched Sabrina? Is that next on your list? Because I know you were choosing the next thing, right, Luke? What's your choice? Have you made it yet? Doom Patrol, because I'm such a big fan of the graphic novels for the comic book series. Yeah. And is that a rewatch for you, or is it you're going to sit down and watch it for the first time together? First time watching it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm such a big fan of the comic book series that might. Then again, this is probably how this is always going to go. I'll go into them thinking I'm not going to like this, and then come out thinking B minus. Now, Doom Patrol, again, keep me honest for not being up on my stuff. Doom Patrol, is it a Grant Morrison creation, or is it that
No,
they just have the iconic series of Doom Patrol?
Yeah, so Doom Patrol, there was a whole era of them, and they were pretty much just X-Men style comics back in the day. And then Grant Morrison did their run on it, added Grant Morrison level mind fuckery and fun, and it's so silly, but it's really witty, really insane. And I'm hoping the TV show captures some of that. It's got Brendan Fraser in it as well.
Oh, what's not to love?
Yeah.
The biggest heart in Hollywood. What a guy.
Yeah. He's also got the biggest chin in Hollywood now as well. You seen that?
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
How about you, Ben? Any
you guys?
watching?
So I saw The Green Knight, a movie that I've kind of been hyped for quite a while. And it really, really lived up to the hype for me. I mean, I haven't written a word. I haven't written a word about it yet. Because I've just been digesting it and watching videos which are breaking down the themes of The Green Knight and what did this mean and what did that mean. And I'm still no closer to knowing really what everything meant. But it really is amazing. Visually, it reminds me of so many things. It reminds me of 80s fantasy. But it's like a Arthurian legend. If I probably meant, But it's just visually, there was bits where I was it reminds me of Legend with obviously Tom Cruise from the 80s, Never-Ending Story, just weird bits like that. But it's definitely an adult movie. It's not like a kids movie at all.
I can't wait to see it. I'm just so disappointed that we got our cinema release knocked back over here.
Yeah, I mean the cast are outstanding. Especially Sean Harris is just listed as king here, but I think he's supposed to be King Arthur. So very A24 in terms of visually, and you when you're watching an A24 movie, don't you? You really do know.
Quite slow normally. Let's say paced.
Yeah, but there's something about this. All I kept thinking was I'd love to play an open world game of The Green Knight. Because I feel like it's a world that I just love to lose myself in, because it's just a very strange sort of fantasy adventure where you don't know what elements are fantasy and what elements are real, but it's amazing. I'm kind of I need to write something about it because I haven't written a word about it yet. I don't think I've even officially rated it on Letterboxd.
Is The Green Knight is it Geoffrey of Monmouth? Is that the guy's name? Is there's something that he wrote, right?
Yeah, so it's a poem, isn't it? It's based on a poem. So
it's an epic poem, isn't it?
It's about Sir Gawain, who is in this. Is it? I think it's supposed to be King Arthur's.
I think it is Arthurian
nephew.
legend.
Geoffrey of Monmouth claimed all this was real at one point, right? This is supposed to be a real history thing, and he just made a load of bullshit up.
It is very trippy, but it kind of it's so hard for me to describe. I would need to kind of get my thoughts together for it. But and Ralph, is it Ineson as well? From The Witch, and obviously Finchy in The Office with the deepest booming voice. He voices a character in it, and it's just it just adds to this sort of mystery, and it was great.
I can't wait to see it.
I was kind of blown away by how much I enjoyed it, and the fact that it reminded me of some of my favorite movies from my childhood without being a movie like that at all. Something about it, just the vibe of it, just reminded me of those. Because films like Legend now, when I watched them, but when I watched them as a kid, they were just so weird, and I didn't know what was around the corner, and I felt like I was actually in a strange, taken on this journey into a strange world, and I just felt like that with The Green Knight. I felt like I didn't know what was coming next, and it was good.
I think it's probably one of the films I'm anticipating seeing the most, but I'm just really keen at the moment. I know that the UK cinema release got bumped, and it was one of those that just disappeared, and we just didn't get a new one, right? It's just, it isn't coming out on Friday after all. We haven't announced a new one yet, so I hope we get one. And then I feel like, based on your reaction, Ben, I feel like this is one that you splash for the IMAX on, if there's an IMAX release.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a number of shots, which would be great to see on IMAX. At the moment, might be my film of the year, but I'm not committed 100% yet until, there's still stuff to come
4
out
months
this year,
ago.
4 months to go. And director David Lowery as well, who made A Ghost Story, which I really didn't like. I really didn't like A Ghost Story, but this is like nothing like that at all. I don't know if you guys saw A Ghost Story, Casey Affleck,
I want
Rooney
to.
Mara.
I was thinking I'd quite like it, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it. I thought there was something that, I mean, that was, I don't even know if it was an A24 movie, but that felt like it felt like an A24 movie. Definitely. It was weird. I felt something just didn't sit right with me. It definitely felt like a style over substance sort of movie, which which was kind of frustrating. But yeah, there's that, and the only other thing I saw was I watched Mary Shelley's Frankenstein last night, the 1994 Kenneth Branagh directed version. I mean, it's kind of hilarious. It's kind of hilarious. There's so much about it. I was like, I've definitely seen it before, but it's very over the top, very over dramatic. And Robert De Niro as Frankenstein's monster, or just listed as the creature here. There's definitely some parts of his performance which are kind of funny. But yeah, it's all right. It's not too bad. I mean, the reason I watched it was because I went to the House of Frankenstein in Bath, which has recently opened. It's basically like a tribute to Mary Shelley and her life, and about the impact of her characters on popular culture. And it was great. It's like got 6 floors of just like amazing stuff. And there's like a basement you go in, which is kind of like a sort of horror experience where there's like an actress down there just wandering about trying to scare you. But yeah,
the pictures look
really
great.
Cool.
It looked fantastic.
Yeah,
Very
they've got like
that it moved.
They've got like a Frankenstein's monster like made out of sort of like animatronic, but he doesn't move very much. His chest sort of goes up and down, and his eyes move. But yeah, it was good. It's only just open. I don't know if it's open forever now. Don't know if it's gonna leave eventually. It's kind of like just next door to there's like a Jane Austen place as well, like museum.
Okay.
So it's Mary Shelley's birthday. Yeah, it was good. It was good. So I thought we'd go back and watch that, because we watched the 1910 Frankenstein, which is 14 minutes long, in the actual museum. They played it and we watched the whole thing.
B-.
Solid B-. I think solid B-. I mean, there's a great sequence where like the monster comes to life, and basically it looks like they've got a model of Frankenstein and they've just like melted it, but then basically they play it in reverse, so it looks like a whole load of mush forms this body. So that was cool. But yeah, 14 minutes. I mean, make of that what you will, but
yeah,
definitely very interesting to see.
Cool.
But that is, I think that's pretty much it in terms of what I watched this week.
Right.
You, Andy?
I have watched very little. I've been away this weekend. So I've only really watched the film of the week, but I have, between a podcast and a book that got off the back of a Kickstarter campaign recently. It's horror adjacent, and it's about to kick me back into revisiting one of my favorite, and I will argue this is sci-fi and horror, games of all time. I'm a bit older than you, so maybe you two have never played it, but I will cover it for you. So the book is called Monsters in the Dark. It is by it's like a video game primarily author by the name of David A. Craddock, and he is primarily interviewing I would say fairly famous and like one of these auteur video game creators, a chap by the name of Julian Gollop, about his XCOM series. Some you guys might have played the Firaxis remake of XCOM that came out, which is very good, but it has inspired me to go back to the original, one of my favorite strategy games of all time, UFO Enemy Unknown. I think it was just called XCOM Enemy Unknown in the US. It's like a turn-based strategy game. Oh, 92, 93.
Oh, interesting.
It is phenomenal. And listening to this, I'm listening to an interview with David A. Craddock, so the author of the book. There's a special that's from earlier this year, or maybe even late last year, on the Kane and Rince video game podcast. Really super, like, in deep depth discussions on video games on there. And this is a special episode of it with an interview with him. Yeah. And just the passion that comes from creating this game. It just reminded me of the atmosphere and the horror you get in what is, based on the age, quite a lo-fi kind of game now. Like it will run on a machine that plays Steam ludicrously fast. I think you can play it on modern machines, but it's no challenge for modern hardware at all. But it is such an intense game, and I remember distinctly the dread and the horror of playing this game, where you run around with your little squad of soldiers, and you're doing like hunts and these missions against aliens, and it's like got the fog of war and the darkness that you try and navigate through. It's brutally hard. An error in the game back in the old days when it was invented meant that whatever difficulty you selected, you were always playing on the hardest difficulty. And it was a notoriously difficult game. And it's terrifying. And there are bits when the aliens are getting you guys and your soldiers have morale and they have fear stats and they panic and start like going berserk and shooting at random or just dropping their weapons and running, and they can get possessed or turn to zombies. It's crazy. Excuse me while I let one of these dogs out. But yes, not to break the tension.
I thought that was just
game.
Added sound effects while you were telling us about that game. There's like a growl going on.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just. I thought maybe it was your belly as well.
One of the aliens creeping up on me. But yeah, did either of you guys ever play that?
No.
Of course I did.
I would recommend it to you and anyone listening. Like it's pretty much always in a Steam sale. It doesn't matter if you haven't got a gaming laptop; it will run on anything that can run Windows these days. Like, it can be a little bit intense to get into because it doesn't really give you any kind of tutorial. It just throws you in it, and then the intention is that you will fail to begin with. But you're managing your base, you're intercepting alien craft, you're doing these little missions on the ground to hunt aliens down. You have to research and do like their autopsies and research new weapons, because otherwise you will get outclassed really quickly. You can, and this is where you get the emotional investment. So you have your soldiers that you can hire, and you can name them. You can name them after your family and school friends, and then get incredibly traumatized when they get shot to death. Yeah, it's.
I've got the. I think XCOM 2. Is that like the very, very latest one?
Yes.
On the PlayStation. So
and they're great. They're great.
I've heard it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, they're fantastic. You have to invest a bit of time in these strategy games, and for anyone who like aged graphics will put you off, the new ones by Firaxis, either 1 or 2, are great games. But the original, something else. I'm gonna having started reading this book and listened to this interview, think I'm gonna go back and play it. So sorry, hundreds of hours of new games I've not touched. I'm playing one that I played 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will check that out, and I think I will definitely download the new one. Give that a go at the very least.
Yeah, it's great. Other than that, just the Candyman.
Just a bloody Candyman.
Yeah.
He's back. He's back. So, Candyman is a 2021 supernatural slasher horror film directed by Nia DaCosta and written by Jordan Peele and Nia DaCosta. Win Rosenfeld. The film is a direct sequel to the 1992 film with the same name and the 4th film in the Candyman film series, based on the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker. Brief synopsis. Bloody Clive. A sequel to the horror film Candyman that returns to the now gentrified Chicago neighborhood where the legend began. I mean, that's not a very good synopsis. But basically, Candyman comes back again.
He's at it again.
Yep.
He's at it again.
So the ratings and reviews are quite interesting for this one so far. IMDb has it at 6.4 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, critics have it at 85%. By the way, we're a little early on, so I think the critics review might go up and down. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, not quite settled yet.
Yeah, 74% user rated score. Letterboxd has it at 3.5. Couple of choice reviews here. St. Bevel said Christina Aguilera's Candyman does not feature 5 stars. So if it did feature, we would have knocked it down a peg. Davis put too political 5 stars. So I don't I don't quite know what their rating system is there. What else we got here? Lols put too many tension for my poor heart. 1 point extra for designer of the house. Geez, half a star. And we've got Carl K who put, if I wanted to be repeatedly punched in the face by someone yelling Black Lives Matter, I would have asked. Half a star. So I think we know what camp Carl K sits in.
He loves getting punched in the face.
This is like
sounds like it.
This is like a politically charged film, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the general vibe? I know, I think you guys are Candyman fans, but maybe I don't know. What did you give it last time, Ben? I can't remember. Was it a B minus?
I'm quite lukewarm on. I'm quite Ben warm on the on the movie Candyman. Like it wasn't a film that I kind of. I mean, I knew it when I was a kid, but I can't remember if I saw it as a kid. I'm pretty sure I saw it as a kid. It's never one of these movies that sort of stuck with me. I know, Luke, you feel differently. Yeah. But when I rewatched it for the podcast, I was a bit lukewarm on it, you know. And I kind of like what has happened with this one, where they've given it, I don't know, it feels like they've given it a reason to exist in 2021, and a good story to tell, and a good message as well. I don't know how I feel about people saying it's politically charged, because I almost feel like, well, something that makes horror work really well is real life horror being included in the narrative of that. I think that's what made other films that Jordan Peele's been involved in, especially like Get Out, feel more real because they're involving real life horrors. And you know, same things are politically charged. It's like, well, politics is everywhere, you know, politics is everything, and especially in terms of when you're talking about horror movies, I feel like for me personally anyway, I feel like having real life horrors in something like this makes it feel more succinct to me. But yeah, I don't even remember seeing 2 and 3. I don't know if I have seen 2 and 3. So does it veto 2 and 3?
I don't know them well enough to guess.
Yeah, I think number 2 isn't even in Cabrini. I don't know about number 3. I don't think number 2 is in Cabrini Green. I think it's like some Southern Gothic sort of story. Yeah, it's interesting. I am a big fan of Candyman, the original. I really enjoy the tone of Candyman. You know what's weird, actually? I was like, where's the Candyman music? And it comes in right at the end of this.
Yeah.
And I was like, hang on, isn't this the Silent Hill music? And I went, oh, they're very similar, the Silent Hill music and the Candyman music.
Yeah.
And then the rest.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. I feel like it. I mean, it improves Candyman in some ways, but I also do have reservations. I do feel like it kind of misses some of the enjoyment of the first Candyman, or some of the allure that I get into when I watch the first Candyman. Anyway, there's part of me that's being held back a little bit. But yeah, what about you, Andy?
I wasn't with you guys when you first did Candyman. I can tell you that as a kid, I don't think I watched Candyman until I was a little older, certainly older than I was when I watched some of the others. Because I think growing up at the time, Candyman was one of those things that, and I don't think it's possible for it to exist in the same way anymore, because I think kids now are a lot more media savvy and you have the internet and things like that. When I was a kid, I know that my friend's dad had a copy of it on VHS, and I remember seeing it at his house. But at the same time, it felt like Candyman was also one of those things that was also a little bit real. You know what I mean? It was like, It was a scary thing. And the same way, and it features in the narrative of the story here, of the movies, like there is this urban legend element to it. And I knew the Candyman as an urban legend almost more so in my whatever year old mind than I did of it just, this is a movie that I've not seen. Like that bit, and like the stories that came behind it, and the ones that you would retell in the playground. There's always a kid with terrible parents who has seen it, who will retell it to you, and it's like through the story of someone that's in the queue while you're waiting for you to go in for your dinner, that's retelling this terrible story. Remember him, James Broad, his name was. I don't know where he is today. He told us all about the plot of like all the Freddy movies he'd seen and the Candyman, and it's one of those things. It has this like legendary appeal to it. So I think when I finally did see it, maybe it couldn't live up to the fear that you've generated from it.
Yeah.
What I will give credit to this film for, and I'll probably take things from what both of you have said, comments that it is too political and things like that. Like, we live in a more and more politically charged world than ever, and we already spoke about the opportunity for other perspectives in filmmaking, and I think this is a prime example of what that is. By its nature, there are segments of the audience who do not like that perspective or find it confronting, who will say, oh, it's too political, whatever. If something's confronting, that is for me at very least, that is the nature of a horror film. It should challenge you in some way. And covering the experiences of, people of those communities, and generally just different perspectives. I think there are some great things to have here, and it's confronting from different perspectives, whether it's something you relate to or something that you can see the other side of, or something that is more unfamiliar to you. I think that there are some things to provoke some thought in that.
I mean, the origin of the character, sorry, Andy, the origin of the character hasn't changed. It's not like we've gone into the past of the character, completely changed it, spun it on its head and gone, right, here we're going to present a different story of a different origin of the character.
That still exists. The same. Yeah, it still exists. I think it's now just
Candyman.
It's now just more, I guess it's more directed, and the things it's asking you to think about are more directly put into you. It's more confronting, for want of a different term to express that. You're actively saying that these are the injustices that have existed in society, and these are the cycles of violence that these communities have experienced. And, for some it will be uncomfortable. For some, they will feel it's a political message. For me, I think it adds to the overall strength of the film. And I think it's these kind of messages and these kind of discussions that you can have off the back of it that which are challenging that narrative of horror movies being throwaway trash that shouldn't be considered for awards and shouldn't be considered as serious pieces of cinema like other genres are. I think having those conversations are the reason that horror can be considered. And I'm never one for the argument of, well, this is an elevated horror. It isn't that case. It's just that now there is a more nuanced discussion around the themes that you're presenting in your horror movies. But yeah, on the other side of things, from a technical narrative and delivery of a film point of view, I think it does some nice work to tie together. And I have no solid memories of Candyman 2 and 3 to see if anything is pulled in here, but it does a nice job for me of kind of bringing things forward, tying it to the old versions of the film, and maybe where perhaps some threads of that narrative were lost in 2 and 3, bringing it to form a cohesive link between then and now. I think it does a nice job of doing that.
I really did like the connection. Sorry, Andy, I keep interrupting you.
That's okay.
I keep waiting for a moment.
These are the perils of Zoom calls, right? One of these days we'll record all this in the same room. We won't have these wonderful trips, but it's so hard on Zoom.
I'll just hold my finger up to your lips when I want to
talk. No, but yeah, sorry, I've gone on a tirade on that one. Just after we've celebrated being a real off the wall podcast, actually the most serious I've spoken about a film since honestly. Leprechaun. But
really good. Some really good points and some stuff that I was really having difficulty trying to bring to the table, but you've voiced some of my faults. So I'll just log off.
No, I think there's lots to cover on this one. But
I really enjoyed I think in terms of linking it to the first movie, I think it did really well, expanding on the sort of the mythos of Candyman, enhancing the narrative. I think it did. As a film itself, it's got some visually, I think it's really great. I got some like giallo vibes, especially during a certain scene. And yeah, like RT horror, I guess we're gonna call it that, RT horror. I think the soundtrack was great. Maybe the final act / finale felt a bit rushed for me. Like the climax of the movie, I was a bit like, oh god, is this the end? Like, even though it was like, I know it was like 90 minutes, but I was like, is this the end? Is this what what was happening? I kind of didn't feel like Anthony McCoy's arc as a character quite got somewhere that I felt was sort of saying something.
We'll come to it. I feel Anthony McCoy loses a lot of agency at some point in the film, and it happens like the flick of a switch. He kind of goes from I'm involved in this to I am
passive.
I'm a vehicle in this.
Yeah.
I'm a prop in the end of this film.
And a moment that should have been incredibly shocking, I was just confused. Like I couldn't work out what had happened, what was going to happen. A moment that felt like it could have had a lot more weight felt like a bit of an afterthought for me. But yeah, I guess we'll chat about that.
There are some characters. I think some of the characters that we meet as well are incredibly fleshed out, incredibly nuanced, and incredibly well done. Others are a little bit two-dimensional. You could argue that is the, that is a thing we can celebrate in horror in a lot of places. Look at some of my favorite movies, like the people that get slashed off in a Friday the 13th movie. Their personality is the haircut they have or the accessory they have. This guy has a yo-yo. This guy likes having a party. Like, but I feel in a film like this that has more things to say about it, and it has more commentary about it, then things that you would overlook in a stupider, popcorn horror film, they themselves feel a little bit jarring. And we come to this character fairly quickly on, so I'll mention him at the beginning, like the art dealer, like one of our first victims that we see. From a writing perspective, he is just a dickhead. Like there isn't that much nuance about him. I feel his exploitation of the, our artist's background and everything, it's very, very transparent. Could it have been done a little differently? I don't know. But like when you first get the note of this one, okay, this guy's an irredeemable dickhead. He's the person we want to get killed first. In a stupider movie, it doesn't matter. In a movie that's got more to say like this, maybe you just want that little bit more depth to those characters.
And a bit of a cliche of an art critic as well, in terms of a character. Just kind of like stern-nosed bitch.
Yeah. If Gillian Anderson had been available for that role, that would be the job that you'd give her, right? In a Scully days. But we'll come to all these as we go through. I guess we should say, just in case people have just tuned in, because it is a new film and this is what they're thinking about right now.
What's the spoilers?
We go full spoilers. If you haven't watched it yet and you want to and you care about spoilers, go and watch it and come back. Do come back though. The download already counts. We've got your number, but do come back and join us for the rest.
Absolute great use of storytelling in terms of flashback with the shadow puppets as well, rather than I think that was good. I mean, like people kind of like telling stories, I find a bit, but I didn't know how else they could have done that, because this legend needs to be understood. It kind of would have made sense if the main characters knew about it already. But I guess the reason Anthony McCoy doesn't know about it is because he's been kind of like hidden from it, shrouded from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a nice visual touch. And we get, for me, not the horror vibes they were looking for, but when I hear that song about Candyman, of course I think about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's like, who can take a sunrise, sprinkle it with dew? Candyman can.
Candyman.
At the very, 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 very start of this film, we were in the cinema. And then the Universal logo came up and it was backwards, and we were like, "Oh shit! Someone's fucked up."
True.
Someone's gonna get fired. Oh, and then the film started. I was like looking at all the little words, thinking, "Oh no, they're the right way around." Yeah. It didn't click with me what they were trying to do until like 20 minutes after I got home. Oh, because it's supposed to look in the mirror. Yeah. I was like, I'm so out of tune. All of us.
I understand. I still didn't get it until this very moment. I was just like,
But I'm glad you didn't, because we didn't, like, all three of us who went to watch the film together were like, what was that all about? No idea. But like, I mean, maybe that was a misstep on whoever decided to put that in, because it was a little bit too obtuse.
Yeah, I mean, that's a flaw in my experience. I've never been to the mirror dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then my very, very favorite part of the film is right after that. It's like a really long title sequence shot up. We're looking up at the top of the skyscrapers that disappear into the fog. And we're like looking at these things for ages, and the angle is made to look like we're looking down at them. It felt surreal. Like it gave me a real sense. Have you been to Alton Towers before and been on Hex?
Yeah.
You know, like the seats move and you feel like you're going to fall out of your seat, but you can't see that because the room's moving as well with you. You don't know. You just feel like you're going to fall out of your seat. I felt like I was going to fall out of my seat and into the screen. It was a really strange experience.
I did like that. Sorry to immediately spoil it, Luke, but I also thought about, I loved Spider-Man on the PS1.
Yeah,
and that's what it reminded me.
when you can't go down because of the fog.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, there was some reason, there was some narrative reason why you couldn't go down to floor level, like a mist. Yeah. But it's like, that draw distance.
Poison gas. There was a few where it was like poison gas down there.
There's poison gas down there. You've got to stay at skyscraper level.
It reminded me of a bit random, bit niche. Koyana Squatsy. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's like
What did you beg your pardon?
I think that's how you say it, but it's the soundtrack's by Philip Glass, and I think I listened to the soundtrack before I even knew what it was. But it's like some of his most famous music, but it's like a weird sort of experimental visual film where it's like all like cityscapes and stuff. But it was like that. Okay. Like the music almost reminded me of Philip Glass as well. But yeah, I don't know if it's on YouTube. I don't know how long it is. Well, it's 86 minutes long. I just seen. Jesus. But pretty much just like it's all slow motion, like cityscapes and random things set to like Philip Glass music. It reminded me of that. It was very, very stylish.
Yeah, but it was beautifully done.
Yeah.
And does the skyscraper scene come before opening scare, or is that after? So
might be a little bit after.
You see a young boy go in to do his laundry. Policeman sees him drop a sock, doesn't say anything. Protect and serve my eye.
Yeah. There's that thing where he bends down to pick that sock up. He bends down to pick that sock up, and another one pops off. Always happens.
That's a real life horror. That happens to me all the time. You take and you dropped that. It's okay. I picked that up. You haven't noticed that you dropped something else.
Yeah.
That's one of those. That's just one of those. That's true observational like filmmaking. Because that always happens.
Yeah.
And you go through like not
commenting. Just tell him.
Yeah, that policeman looks and goes, it's all the way over there. I'll have to shout. And he doesn't help. And the little boy, he goes in. I made a note. He's got a very Candyman-y jacket here. That's a Candyman jacket or Del Boy, one or the other.
Is that a red herring or is that not a red herring? What's the opposite of not a red herring?
Just a regular herring.
A regular herring.
Just a blue
That's
herring.
A regular herring, that is there. The police officer also shows him like a sketch of a man that they're looking for. Have you seen this bloke? And he just goes,
seen this bloke? It's the Candyman.
Seen this bloke? No.
And off he pops down there to do his laundry in the creepy basement. Of course, where you keep the laundromat. And then he goes back to hang out in the big old hole in the wall that's in there. And who should come stepping out? But we'll cover who it is shortly. But a Candyman looking fella.
Candyman, yeah. He's not got a hook. He's got one of those like
pincher.
Pincher, yeah.
Yeah, he's got like a
buttock pincher.
He has like a prosthetic, basically, like, but not a not a like a sophisticated hand one. He has like a functionally prosthetic limb.
It's interesting because when this happened, I was like, oh, so it's not. I had no idea if this was a remake or a reboot or a remake boot or whatever that saying is. I was like, oh, so that's what the Candyman looks like in this one.
Yeah.
Interesting choice. He's got like a friendlier face. Seems quite nice, really, but like a little bit disturbed, a little bit strange.
Yeah. Nice, but like he hasn't slept a wink in a week. I've been living in this wall and there's nowhere to sleep. And do you want some candy? Have some candy.
Want some candy?
You want some candy? And then obviously the kid screams in terror as you would, and then we cut to the police.
The skyscrapers.
Is that what we cut to immediately? Then we don't.
Yeah, I think
we go back to it, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We see the police like raging out of the car, like oi oi oi, and then we just go to Spider-Man on the PS1 and look at the. Yeah. Sorry, very reductive of what is a very beautiful scene. I'm a shithead. I'm sorry.
I'm telling you, it's my favorite part. I don't know why. As I was watching it, I was kind of blown away by that opening.
I've been listening to the soundtrack, and that song, which I think is called "The Suite," which plays with the opening credits, is just like, there's something really like mesmerizing about it. We didn't mention the cast, but obviously the lead is Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, aka Dr. Manhattan, aka Black Manta from Aquaman as well.
Love them big red lasers. He's great.
He is great. Like, everything I've seen him in, I'm just like, he's great. He's superb. Apparently, he's going to be in the new Matrix movie as well.
You see him, and then you can understand why that blonde lady at the library has that reaction. What a powerful presence! You're like, oh
yeah, of course.
Flustered.
How clean are those Converse?
This guy
little nipple hat.
The little nipple hat, his little earring, his Converse. Just the whole look of this dude is like,
that apartment they live in. Wait, I don't understand. They live in like a high-rise. It's an amazing looking apartment.
Yeah,
it looks absolutely
well.
fantastic.
This is what they're talking about, the gentrified areas, right? Like if this area if they're claiming the area is being gentrified now, you have not, taken a close look at your flat, because it is absolutely on point. Oh, look at this old place, not been decorated for.
It's unbelievably nice. Yeah,
I guess they are all like artists and designers, though.
I know, but so this is what one of the guys at the cinema said. Well, he's a famous. I don't think he's a famous artist. I think he had like a decent showing outside of grad school or whatever. She's like an art collector or
she's like a curator.
She's like the breadwinner, isn't she? Because
but she only works at like this little art gallery. I mean, maybe they get paid way more than I thought. I don't know. But I don't. It seemed to me like they cannot be living in that apartment, going through different bottles of wine. Maybe they can. I don't know. Maybe
drinking
I just live a different wine. Dessert wine for dinner.
That's way too sweet.
Maybe it's established that, like, fashion is a funny and fickle thing. Like maybe they moved into that apartment dead cheap, and it just happens to have come into fashion.
Yeah.
Oh, no one wants this. No one wants this exposed brickwork. I'm gonna have to rent this for cheap. Oh, hello.
Yeah, I just say I would like to live there. It looks great.
Yeah, it's definitely super. Look at the quality of the fittings on those taps. There's no way that's just old. Look at it. They've got like a range cooker.
It's so nice. But they've got friends around. They've got it's Curtis from Misfits.
Yeah. Recognize them straight away. So Teyonah Parris plays Brianna, who is Anthony McCoy's girlfriend and the art director. not Andy's.
She's from One Division as well, I think.
Yeah, so she's gonna be in Nia DaCosta's new movie, The Marvels, as well, which is gonna be Captain Marvel, and Teyonah Parris played Monica Rambeau, didn't she?
She's Monica Rambeau,
yeah.
Is she?
Yeah.
And then there's another guy. Is it Colman Domingo? William Burke he plays. That name rings a bell. A Cabrini Green resident who tells Anthony about the Candyman legend.
Oh yeah, he's the guy who meets at the laundromat. So he is.
Oh, okay.
Spoilers for later. Yeah, he is the little boy from the opening, right?
Yeah.
So,
they sit down. They're having like arty chat, and it's quite lively, and they're drinking wine. And then Curtis from Misfits says, "Have you ever heard of the Candyman?" And he starts turning the lights off,
Yeah.
He lights a couple of candles.
Gets ready to tell him a little
like-
story, and he does that to break some political tension, right? When they're going like, "Oh, yeah, this is the sweetest house ever," and they're talking about gentrification of previously poor communities, and it's always the the white the white communities that come in, they move us all out, and they do all these things, and they go. Bit of a conversation killer. Horror story? Ghost story, anyone? Yeah.
Anyone
Yes,
fancy
please.
a ghost story about a famous Candyman? Yes.
I liked this story because he basically retells Candyman 1 about the evil Helen.
Don't say Helen 5
Helen.
times, Luke.
Helen.
Oh,
Helen
Helen.
Lyle.
Helen. The guy at the end of the
I
first one. Well, no one says someone's name randomly 5 times in a row. Unless they're really angry. Oh, Helen. Helen.
Helen Lyle.
Helen. Oh, do you reckon her name's Helen Lyle? Like Tate and Lyle?
Tate and
Sugar?
Lyle. I was going to say exactly that. Tate and Lyle, aka sugar, the main ingredient in candy. Candyman.
Yeah. But I like the retelling of it as if she's the kind of the villain of the story. So she killed a Rottweiler with a bare hand. Bare hands. Did blood angels in it.
Human hands.
Chopped a Rottweiler's head off, did blood angels, and then nicked a baby and was going to chuck it in the fire. But then she didn't. She chucked herself in the fire instead. That's the end of Helen Lyle.
Was the links, obviously spoilers, spoilers, but was the links between Anthony McCoy and the baby from the first movie, was that already revealed? Because I felt like I already knew that.
I didn't know.
I didn't know that. Maybe I've missed it from 2 or 3, but I didn't know until it was time to be revealed. It was a classic, the Dr. Watson thing from a Sherlock Holmes story where you, the audience, work it out moments before Dr. Watson does, or Anthony in this case. Like, I worked it out exactly when I was meant to. I was like, oh, that baby that was mentioned, that hasn't been mentioned for a while, he's in.
I think I realized when I saw Vanessa Williams, although I didn't realize that she played the woman in the first one.
She's barely aged. She's got to be like 50 odd.
She came on. I was like, point. She's never his mum.
Yeah.
Year older than he is.
Yeah. There we go.
So Anthony. So they tell us story of Helen, and then
that's the ghost story. There's no mention of Candymans at this point. It's I want to tell you the ghost story of lean into the torch on your face.
Sugar lady.
Helen Lyle, famously of the Tate and Lyle sugar duo. Oh yeah.
Sugar duo. Well, they were a cracking duo. I like some great hits. Sugar was one of them.
Sugar was the best one.
Yeah. But they get. I think we get the impression Anthony's got like a curator coming the next day, and he's got some work he wants to show, but he's like, yeah, it'll be okay. We'll see how it goes. Because he's not overly inspired by what he's been
working on recently.
Yeah. Next day, curator comes and he's like, this is all right, but this is like this is like the same. I think it's like almost exactly the same picture. It's like a guy wearing a noose around his neck or something. Yeah. And then he goes, okay, I think I'm working on a new thing. It's about gentrification, blah blah blah, gentrification, Cabrini Green. And then the guy's like,
oh, love it.
He does the great thing. Yeah. He essentially pitches something and then goes and researches it afterwards, which is a great move for any creative. I feel like you got to do that. You got to throw it out there and then go, bloody hell, I better go and research this now before I say anything else.
Yeah, before I actually have to like get pinned down to this. Yeah, he goes to do his research, but this is the character.
Makes a Pinterest board.
Like, here we go, literally. Note on the page, big letters, line to itself, art dealer equals awful. Like, this is the thing you get to him because he's transparently an awful person. This man is to self-awareness or lack of self-awareness what the guy from Midsummer is to gaslighting. He's the man that says, oh yeah, use it from your history, your thing. And it's like, oh God, do you hear yourself, art dealer? You are the worst man. You are like transparently like trying to make the experiences of an entire community, and this particular artist that you're, claiming to want to display his work, completely transactional and very cynically like, oh yeah, diversity sells right now, doesn't it? And talking about this gentrification and pointing out these
trying to profit off of black trauma, which is like,
yeah. So he is instantly an awful man, and not superficially charming, but awful man. Like a Patrick Bateman character or something like that. Like, he's just transparently awful, and you would imagine that surely no one would give him the time of day, maybe if not for his position. Made a quick note here: cannot wait for this man to inevitably die. Hope it's the first person. And I almost get my wish, but
Yeah.
And then he's off on his way.
He's off on his research trip.
Yeah.
Research trip, not strip.
Does some Googling first, which you got to do.
Yeah.
That's the first point of call.
Almost misspells it, but gets it right in the end.
Oh yeah.
We get Helen, a picture of Helen pretty early on, right? I think there's like a
he sees her in the newspaper. You get an actual.
It looks like a screenshot from the movie. So I'm like, who's taking that photo of her looking exactly like she did in the Candyman movie from 1993? I suppose, what was she, a journalist? So maybe there would have been a.
It feels like the screenshot is almost from when she was like being hypnotized by the Candyman and collapsed. She's like,
yeah. Well, Candyman did take a picture at the time. If you remember, he had his little camera with him.
Sold it to newspapers.
Oh yeah, it's all those other things.
Some money.
If someone ever like is embroiled in a scandal, then they will find the worst picture. Like real life horrors. The teenager Amanda Knox that was arrested and then unarrested and things. The newspapers at the time ran pictures of her like sitting behind a machine gun that she took when she was on like a tourist thing, and her boyfriend that was arrested as well, he was like wielding a knife, but they were at a Halloween party at the time. That you pick the worst context, awful photos to use of people. That's what's happened to Helen. She's been demonized in this.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
You picked a photo of her eating a bacon sandwich and looking a bit awkward. She's Ed Miliband.
Rub some bird poo off the shoulder. Yeah. So so he goes into Cabrini Green, the old Cabrini Green. I don't like this shot, but it's quite a evocative shot where you've got the old Cabrini Green right next to the new high-rise flats, so you can see the juxtaposition between the two areas. He goes into the houses, which are kind of empty, and I think one of the best Candyman aspects is the graffiti, like the sort of urban art, and we see pictures of. I think we see a picture of Candyman, right? Not Helen at this point.
It's just like a weird sort of like spectre shape, weird thing that we guess, like, for us who know Candyman well, he's our best bud. We can go, that's Candyman.
But recognize him anywhere.
Recognize him anywhere, mate.
But yeah, you have a look at all these things. This is where he gets stung by a bee. Although for our money, do you recognise that as a bee? It looks a lot more waspish from my money. Maybe that's an American bee.
I mean, not all bees are bumblebees. I think
you get honeybees though, but it looks more.
Yeah,
it looks more waspy.
I don't know.
But he swats the bee and it falls on the floor. For our money, it is bees. Maybe it's killer bees, but he swats the bee and it falls on the floor. And it gets captured by some ants after it's stung. They made a note there. The Candyman's weakness must be ants. If we can find something that metaphorically is ants, we know how to defeat him.
Ant-Man. Ant-Man.
Just shrink Ant-Man down and he can fight all the bit. Now that makes sense. Yeah. Shrink him down and then put him up Candyman's arse, because that's what they want to do. The quantum realm.
I mean, arse.
Yeah. and then just get big again. And that's it.
Finished. There you go.
So the Candyman is weak against ant type things.
Yeah. And then while he's, I guess, sort of trespassing on. Well, actually, is he trespassing? It's just like abandoned property. In it. Police go flying past and he kind of hides. And then he meets a dude called William Burke, who, what's he doing there? He's carrying some stuff.
He's doing his laundry still.
Yeah.
He's like, where's that
fucking
sock?
He's still doing laundry like all these years later, and now he owns a laundromat, which is the next logical step up from
When he was doing that laundry on his own.
You get traumatized outside of the laundrette. You have to overcome those demons.
And he was like, right, I'm never going to do laundry again, but I'm not going to just buy myself a washing machine. I'm going to own the laundromat. He's going to be. If this was in the East End of London, he is Dot Cotton, effectively.
Yeah.
Oh no! Is that Dot Cotton? What did she say? Oh Nick! Oh Nick! What's happened? What have you been doing?
Candyman.
Oh Candyman! Have you been out there doing bad things again? Hooking people? You bastard.
So
this guy tells the story from the very, very start of the film, but the rest of it, right? So basically, the Candyman we saw earlier, I think his name's Melvin or something like that. Not very
Sherman.
Yeah, close enough. Sherman comes out of the wall and he tries to give him some sweeties, and he starts screaming. He's freaking out because like the last thing he knows is there's razor blades in these sweets potentially. Not too sure, but there might be. And
and he's the guy that's on the poster, right? So he's the "Have you seen this Candyman?" And he points out that basically, he points because they asked him first about Helen, and he goes, "Oh, funny! Like all these other people died in this community. The first time one white woman dies, that's the name that everyone hears."
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the same. Like so, the Shermanator was dishing out all of the candy. And then one white kid apparently had like a razor blade in some sweets. The boiled sweets he's giving out. Come on, do a little bit of police work. You're never going to get a razor blade in a boiled sweet.
You've seen what the razor blade looks like when we see it later. It's literally like sandwiched in there, like it's massive. No one's going to look at it and go, "Oops!" You're going to see it before you put it in your mouth because it's huge.
Yeah, it's literally an entire disposable bic, like just in a sweetie wrapper. But yeah, basically the police immediately blame this guy Sherman with a hook hand, and they come looking for him, but they can't find him. So then when the little boy screams, we flash back in, and he has just given him a sweet. He was just a nice Candyman. So he was the kind that would take a rainbow, paint it with a smile, but he didn't. In this case,
he's living in a bloody wall, though. I guess he's kind of hiding because the police are looking for him because they believe somebody's been putting razor blades in sweets. But obviously, after they kill him in cold blood, and they just beat him. Is that what
they beat him beyond recognition?
Yeah.
Like a whole army of them, like running there.
And then I thought, oh, maybe they're like the ants. So the police in this metaphor are the ants because they all leg it down the stairs like little ants and beat him up.
Yeah. Okay. And it almost seems like William, when he's a kid, seems more scared of the police all rushing in and sort of beating Sherman to death rather than he was ever scared of Sherman. So, but then obviously weeks later, the sweets with razor blades in turn up again. So unless Sherman somehow like sent them delayed to kids, which I doubt.
Yeah.
He's not responsible. He
Snail
was killed.
mail.
He was innocent.
So an innocent man was killed for something that he had nothing to do with, by the police.
But since he gets moided pretty bad by the police, I think it's just if you say Candyman 5 times in the mirror, how does that start? I don't know. Sherman appears to Shermanate you.
Yeah.
Right?
So Sherman is the current Candyman. It's like
the only thing that's weird about that, like, so there's different Candymans at different ages. Do you have to like have a hook hand and like candy and wear those coats to be eligible?
And have a load of bees knocking about with you?
Like, I think it just goes with nothing to do with bees.
Yeah.
I think it just goes to the territory, doesn't it? So like there's got to be something to do. Well, I'm trying to pick it apart, but I don't really know. Something to do with the legend. Maybe the legend claims you as a victim.
If you kind of fit the avatar to some extent, like you are more eligible, more susceptible to be drawn into the Candyman legend, I guess.
Can you imagine that? I'm betting Tony Todd, old Daniel old Daniel, he's got a little bit of clout because he's been the Candyman for the longest time. When he tries to bring Helen in, that the other Candymans are going like, not sure about this one. It's not.
It's like Doctor Who all over
That's
again.
true.
But there's literally going to be Candyman gatekeepers, the undead Candyman gatekeepers going, a woman is Candyman, and in the title, Candyman. All right.
Do you think that happened?
Oh, you have to
Helen's
call us
Revenge,
Candy.
whatever
You
the
have to
second
call
one's
us.
called.
You have to
Farewell
call
to
us
the
Candy Person now, do you? Oh, it's not in my day. Too political. This Candy business
Officer.
has got. Yeah, but obviously Tony Todd, original Candyman. I've forgotten his last name. His name is Daniel
Robitel. It's got a really cool name.
Robitel. Daniel Robitel.
So
he is the original Candyman. He probably gets to the deciding vote.
Here's one of my issues with this film. I feel like the engine of this film is about a guy researching Candyman, and the more he looks into it, the more he finds out that it's kind of a lineage to the title, and he's going to be the next one. And by researching him, he's bringing him back around. He's kind of invoking Candyman. In the original one, the story engine is different. It's a Candyman may or may not be real. She may or may not just be passing out and killing things. And there's a really kind of alluring story angle there where you think, what the hell is going on? She's passed out. She's woke up and there's like a beheaded dog next to her and she's covered in blood. That's a really palpable, engrossing story element that this one just doesn't have. And I feel like it does lose some of the proportion that original one did have. Because this one, it's like, when Candyman does appear, it's like, no, it's definitely Candyman. There's no if, buts, or maybes. Only absolutes over that.
Is this something that can you not create that sense of uncertainty, given that this is at very least a sequel to the first one, though? Because we know from the end of the first one, if it has been an entire reboot and said, right, there's no Candymans now, this is Candyman 0, then you could have
no sugar.
Oh god. the Candyman 0. Yeah, so if this is Candyman 0, there's no background to fall back on. There isn't anything on there. So if you hadn't necessarily tied it in as a sequel, so you could mention Helen, you could mention the past, but once you include the actress, once you include the events of that film as canon, then the uncertainty of the Candyman's existence is gone. And we're at Leprechaun in Space territory. It's happening. It's a thing that's happening. You're taking the next step down that path. People aren't surprised to see dinosaurs in the Lost World. They've been to Jurassic Park. Okay. But I see what you mean, Luke. I see what you mean. But I'm not sure you can.
I don't think
in the defense. I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't think there is a way around it, really. Also, I do feel like it misses it's missing one element that I don't know if it could have done a bit of this, which is where Helen is kind of romantically curious in Candyman. Tony Todd appears and he's like really alluring, and his voice is really boomy, and he's kind of hovering around. It's like, I don't understand, why is this guy so like alluring to her? And that's kind of what propels her to research more about him. She's kind of like really interested in who the Candyman is, and she kind of goes, her curiosity takes her too far, and she kind of gets embroiled in it. I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that.
Are we supposed to believe that Anthony McCoy is allured in the same way artistically rather than romantically?
Well,
is that what's driving?
I don't know.
He loves art.
He's just an obsessed artist, I think, is the thing.
Well, I think we play that angle, but I'm not sure I get the same. It isn't a criticism of the actors, but I'm not sure I get it from the actions I see on screen that there's this obsession. We know that he's an artist, so we see him like frantically painting the face as it begins to come in. But I guess in his spoken interactions, until it's kind of too late and it's happening, he seems quite casual about it. Oh, I'll just pop to the university and get some files until it's kind of happening. And we get like almost a comedy beat after the first murder when he's excited that his work is being mentioned by name on television.
Yeah, that's a strange.
And it's funny because the other guys are kind of looking at him like, I think it's nice to have some levity in these films, but I kind of maybe that levity is the thing that undercuts what could be a growing obsession.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Whatever
Like,
story
without someone yeah. Sorry,
whatever story was told by his brother-in-law that day would have been his new obsession. You know, he happens to talk about Candyman. He's like, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do for my new art thing." If he'd have been talking about Lego or the latest episode of The Simpsons, he'd have been like, "Right, got to get my Disney Plus subscription.
Yeah.
I'm going to draw Bart Simpson."
One thing I would say is after he becomes obsessed and starts drawing these Francis Bacon looking paintings, I was like, these are way better. I really like these paintings these days.
Put these pens out, but you would be one of the only ones though, because we cut after the story of the Candyman. We see him do his first load of pictures, and they're at the gallery, the display and he's done. I am not an art critic. I've never claimed to be, and I never will claim to be, but it's a good show he's put together. He's done some paintings, and he's got a little bit that opens up in the mirror, and he's put
just like the first one with the hole behind the.
Yeah, he's put the hole behind the thing, and there's the mirror cabinet, and like, it's a really nice piece he's put together. I would be interested in seeing that as like an art installation. I've seen art installations like over the years. We go to, you know, not completely bereft of culture. I go to a museum or a gallery once in a while, and I will, I've been and had a look at stuff, and I've seen good art, I've seen excellent art, and I've seen some incredibly lazy installations, with the bit of paper going, the artist feels that it's up to you, the viewer, to interpret this. I'm like, don't piss around with that, guys.
Well, one of their peers does sort of say, where did you get those paintings, Dad? It's a bloody little kid drawing with his crayons or something.
Fucking, what's he called? A goofy ass fuck.
He calls him a goofy ass fucker. Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, he's doing this, and then the art dealer automatically is like, it's kind of complete. There's like a dissonance from what they are reacting to and what the general public are looking at. So people seem to be looking at the paintings and the pictures and enjoying them. He has a 2-minute conversation with the critic, and the art dealer's like, "Oh, tell your boyfriend to stop like hogging the critic, will you?" I'm like, give it a rest, mate. I already think you're a dickhead. Stop. Like, he's like, "Oh, do this," and then he has the critic, and they have a little "you people" exchange, and he's like, "Oh, these ghettos and the gentrification, you people do." It's like, "Whoa, you people!" It's like, "Yeah, artists. You guys come and you appreciate the low rents of these cheap ghetto areas, and then you're the ones that basically begin the cycle of gentrification because, artists move in and you make the place trendy, which is what attracts the thing." And it talks about the cycle there, and there's some truth to that. Right, Ben? Like, sorry, both of you, but I'm about to go into an example. Like, Ben, areas in Bristol, like Montpellier, right? Like, incredibly trendy areas that are up and coming. I think if you look at those areas, 10 years ago, there would have been less desirable places to live. But now, house prices are soaring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots that make sense in that and are good points when it comes to it. Yeah.
But yeah, they have those exchanges, and then we get to call that a goofy ass fuck.
He's had a few drinks, Anthony McCoy. He's having a good time. Well, not having a good time really, because the art installation hasn't really got the reaction he was hoping for. So yeah, he leaves and
tells the art dealer to stock up on morning after pills for shagging his interns the whole time.
That was good. And then his comeback is, you must have had one in the bank, because that's not fair. You had one in the bank ready to go. He's like, "Yep."
Yes, yeah. I had that in the bank because you're a piece of shit. You're the worst man in this film. And he goes, "See you later, bye."
See you later, bye. Don't die. And then that night, while they're cleaning up all the beer bottles and cleaning up after the art installation, the
intern says, "Oh, what about that thing?" This is the other thing as well. So this is the art installation that had no impact and you all hated. Yet it's the one that they're talking about. It's like, "Oh, this one about the Candymans. Yeah. Oh, what's that? That art literally the only one that you are talking about is the one that you allegedly all think is pointless."
Yeah. You know what? Anthony says this at some point in the film as well. Like, if you say his name, if you say Candyman in the mirror, it is quite palpable. Even like today, if you look in the mirror and start saying Candyman 5 times, there's a little bit of fear. There's a little bit of something that's
when
like,
you get to the 5th time, you are a bit like,
I,
should I, could I, would I now?
Yeah, and this is that bit I was telling you about when I was growing up. Genuinely, it's one of those things that you just think, "Are the real Candymans?" Like, I tell you what, I'll hedge I'll hedge my bets, and I'll say Beetlejuice 3 times instead, because I think then I'll just get some mild peril, some mischief.
Mild peril.
And if I do Beetlejuice enough times and he doesn't turn up, then I'll, you never go straight to Candyman.
Yeah. This makes me think as well. Sorry to jump in.
Okay.
Did you guys ever try and levitate stuff with your mind growing up?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel. Did you ever try and power up like a Super Saiyan?
Yeah, that's say ever try and tend to. If I get cross enough,
or try and move things with your mind, like Matilda.
Yeah. Try and Matilda it.
Magneto, not Matilda.
I remember constantly trying to move stuff like a Jedi, all the time. I kept thinking it's kind of one of these times it'll move just a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, Candyman has the same thing. Is a kid even today looking in a reflection and saying it? There is something there. I think it's Bloody Mary. That's where the whole thing comes from, right?
Yeah. Bloody Mary, and then
Bloody hell, Mary.
Bloody Mary, Candyman's doing your Jedi Force trick. I used to sometimes do a bit of like is it Evil Dead 2 where he's looking at himself in the mirror and then the reflection is evil and it starts like strangling him.
Yeah.
Sometimes that as well. If you look at your reflection in the mirror too long,
that's weird. Yeah, I don't think
I hope there's not a bad me inside the mirror that's going to smash me up anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's right. And I think this is where the urban legend stuff really, really filters in. But the terrible art critic is not art critic. The art dealer is going to have sex with his intern. But she goes, fancy doing it Candyman style. I said, oh, what do you mean by that? I said, oh, while we're having sex with this art installation, I'll say Candyman.
Yeah.
And he goes,
call me Candyman if you like.
And it's happened like 3 times already, right? Because Anthony's already almost said it 4 times with his girlfriend. She's like, "Oh, pack it in. Don't do that." And like, you get a couple of near misses because then.
No. He says 5 times, and then there is a bit. You see him Shermanator in reflection, but he's so slight.
Yeah.
You must have missed him.
Yeah. Because I was constantly looking for Shermanator because he does pop up randomly. And sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he's reflections, I shouldn't have bothered looking.
But he turns up this time when the assistant is saying Candy, and the awful. This is maybe where he tipped it over the edge with the awful art dealer. It's like, oh yeah, say. He's like, oh, don't say Candyman because we haven't had sex yet. And it's like, oh yeah, you're the worst. And he's like, oh, actually, do say Candyman because necrophilia is really in now. And it's like.
Yeah,
my face is that the emoji face where it's completely a flat line, and there's like that is like you've done it. You are a caricature of an absolute dick. But he gets his comeuppance right now. She says Candyman, and then he should pop out the mirror, but the Shermanator he slashes her right up.
There's some really good
sorry, Ben, go on.
I was going to say, there's some really good, reflection mirror stuff happening here.
This is brilliant.
The blue and the red and the flashing lights and stuff. It was very giallo. It got me thinking of like giallo movies, definitely.
The lighting in here, the effect where we see in the mirror. So the art dealer is looking around and he can see Candyman in the mirror, and he's like slashing the video part of the art installation, like the cinema screen, and in the mirror, you can see him going across. Then in real life, it falls down, like slashed across.
They stick pretty hard to this whole reflection thing, don't they? I don't think he comes into our dimension until the very, very, very end. Like, for the most part, he's exclusively in the Mirrorland.
Yeah.
So the only thing is, so they slit the girl's throat, and then the guy's like, "Is this actually happening?" They're kind of playing it for laughs, which I didn't really. One criticism, I didn't find any of this film that scary. I felt like it didn't really have any sort of genuinely sort of holy shit terrifying moments. It was a lot of it was kind of played down a bit,
I think
or like, it would constantly cut
differently.
away.
Yeah,
it would constantly cut away.
It was only a 15, wasn't it? In
that's what I was going to say. This is a 15, and there are a couple of bits where I was like, that editing was weird. Like, I feel like we've missed a shot here. I'm wondering if it was cut to be an 18, and they were like, no, we need to get the teenage audience to this because this is Candyman. Loads of kids are going to want to come see the urban legend.
If Suicide Squad can be 15 with like literally heads getting cut off, and
people
stuff.
getting popped like balloons and stuff, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's funny the different approaches and things like that. Like, basically, if you don't want your film to be an 18, don't say cunt, don't do drugs, right? But apart from that, I don't understand why not many films have to back away from, like, avoid sexual violence, I think. But I think for a slasher movie, you could have been a little more explicit on this one. So maybe the studio are a bit heavy-handed. I
think there's a Snyder cut somewhere in there. We need to release the
DaCosta cut.
Yeah. It feels like, especially later on, there's a guy who may or may not cut his tongue out. And I'm like, surely we should have seen that, because that's, I don't know, like, it felt like they were cutting away too much from the actual violence.
Yeah.
But the first one, like, we see it, there's one bit where a guy just gets a hook, like, suddenly, like, pops out for his chest. I don't think we see anything that up close in this one.
No,
there's a murder later on where it like really pans out and we see it happen in the distance, like in the window.
But we see the slash across the throat just appear in nothing, basically, but it's kind of from like a mid distance and in like quite stark shadow. And then the guy runs to the door. Candyman's other power that is seldom explained is that he can lock a door from any distance.
Good luck.
He's like
the
locksmith. He's like the master of central locking. He's like, I'm the central locking man. Yeah. Doesn't just work on cars though. You can central lock your museum. You can central lock your toilets. You can central lock anything.
Yeah, you can central lock stuff that has no locking mechanism.
He's
here.
Candyman. He's central locked that art gallery, and he gets dragged off into oblivion. He gets slashed up next to it and left for dead. And we don't see the discovery of the bodies, unless I've forgotten that, right? We just see the news next day with Anthony. With Anthony's having to watch the news and sort of smiling, because this is where we have the bit where he's like,
we do see
the mentioning his work.
Yeah,
Brianna like coming into the gallery and discovering
we do.
Them. I don't think you see them in full straight away, but then there's like, it's kind of like cut between that and the news story, and then it shows the bodies discovered.
In horror movies, TV shows, everything, someone walks in, they find a dead body, they like scream, like it's always a reaction like and then it cuts to the next scene or whatever. I don't think people do scream when they see dead bodies. I think it's more of a oh fuck. Like, I don't think you would scream like that.
It must be one of those things. Yeah. I don't know what the reaction would be. I think the closest I've had to it, and it wasn't a dead body. But you just that lingering fear, and like, you know, he's not with us anymore. It was my granddad when he was still alive. He was getting on a bit. My grandma had already passed away, and he used to live in a place that backs onto my parents' house. They bought a bungalow that just happened to be in the next street, and they shared a fence. So they put a gate in, you could walk through, so they could, you know, help him out a little bit when he was in his later years. So my mum and dad were away, and we've called in, and I said I'd call in and see him, and I'd been to see him on the one day. You know, he was in his 90s at this point, and then the next day I went to call in and see him, and it was in the middle of the day, and I walked around and I went in. Let myself in through the back, and I was calling, oh, Granddad, how you do? Like, it's just Andy, I've come around to see you and what have you. And I didn't hear anything. So I like kind of slowed down, because I was like, I don't want to scare him, whatever. And I walked around and I went into what was their like the back opened, and then there's basically two doors, one to the living room, one to the bedroom, side by side in this bungalow. And as I walked around the corner, I could like see that I could see his feet and his legs, and he was lying on the bed, and I could see he had like his slippers or his shoes on or everything. So he was like fully dressed. He wasn't in bed. He was clearly just lying on the bed. And I kind of went round the corner incredibly slowly. And even my granddad was lying on this bed incredibly still.
Yeah.
And I had that horrible feeling that, you know, he like passed away. And I didn't like shout, oh, fucking hell. I said his name incredibly loudly. Not his name. Didn't call him by his first name, called him Granddad. I said it incredibly loudly, and it's a wonder I didn't kill him on that spot, because he then jumped up and he just lay down in his bed and fallen asleep a little bit.
Oh, God.
But that was the feeling of like,
Granddad!
yeah, yeah, that is the feeling of discovering. And like that would, had I done that, it would have been, you know, I would have found someone who would, you know, passed away peacefully in their sleep, not someone who'd been terribly brutally murdered. But that chill of a feeling that you get when you walk around and you think that you might have seen someone who you are used to seeing alive, dead, it's horrible. And I didn't actually see it, so I can only imagine, do they have to cut away from those scenes because it's impossible for actors to recreate that? I'm not sure that you can convincingly deliver that horrible feeling.
What's it called again? It's like the Val Luton bus, where they scream and it cuts to like a bus pulling it up, and it's like the sound of the bus is like the
classic.
Well,
one of the best versions of that. Sorry, one of the best versions of that is in The Lost World, when from the opening sequence, when we obviously a daughter has been attacked by some compies, the tiny little dinosaurs.
Yeah.
As the mum screams, it cuts to Jeff Goldblum yawning. And I always really enjoyed that. So it's like, great. It really is great.
But yeah, he's old Tony, like Tony Todd. See, he did it on purpose. Tony is watching the news that these murders have happened. Didn't like the guy anyway, just told him to piss off the other day. And they've been murdered, but they're mentioning his name and his art installation prominently in the news.
Immediate
article.
Notoriety.
I wonder if the reason they added that detail was because when he becomes the Candyman, he will live on in infamy as well, like a evil art installation that kills people. Like, do you think it's like just to sort of pepper in the idea that like he'll be a Candyman, but he'll be okay with it. So it's all okay.
In many ways,
likes the fame that goes along with it.
In many ways, this is what he wants, just for the attention. I mean, before that, he was just putting on his Facebook, "Bad day, don't ask."
You okay,
right,
hun?
You're right, Tony.
Inbox me, babe.
I don't know if we've mentioned, but Anthony is really. I think we did mention about the actor being a really good guy, but I actually really liked watching Anthony pretty much the entire time on camera. Like,
he's great.
He's got like a cheeky energy to him. It's like a kind of puppy-ish kind of energy to him. Like even now when he's like smiling, like when he finds out about his people being dead.
Yeah. And Brianna is obviously just like totally disgusted with him for doing that.
It looks like he just found out he's having lasagna for dinner.
Bloody love lasagna. So many layers.
And he's like, oh, you know, bad for them being slashed up, but
my name's on the news.
They mentioned my name on the news.
Very nice.
So I don't really know where it goes from. I think Anthony's starting to get like his hand where he got stung by the bee. It's like, I mean, it's like horrendously
going crispy.
Yeah,
it's going a bit gooey. I mean, this is the true horror of living in the US, right? With a privatized healthcare system. Like, you wouldn't have no Candymans in the UK, not because we don't have a terrible history of poorly treating any number of minority communities as a nation historically, but if you get a gappy hand, straight down the GPs.
Yeah.
Straight down a walk-in centre.
I'm always surprised by people's reactions in this film. They're like looking at him and he's like picking at this giant scab thing. And they're like, please don't do it at the table. I'll be like, please
you got to
just
get some
sort
help.
it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it looks
doesn't look good.
horrific.
That looks like it
it-
stinks.
You'd be like, right, get a bottle of you'd be like, right, get a bottle of witch hazel, mate. Rub that in. Here's some Sudocrem.
It does look like it stinks. You could smell that. I mean, it looks like his hand looks like it's decomposing.
Yeah, which is sort of the idea. But at the same time, he's getting really into his art. I think he's losing his mind a bit. His room is a mess, and he's got like loads of paintings of Candyman faces. I think I'm trying to work out. He goes to see the guy again. No, maybe it's around here. He goes to see his mum. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. So
He sees his mom quite towards the end. You've heard the sorry guys, remember the girlfriend character, the art curator. What's her name?
Brianna.
Brianna. So Brianna has
argument.
basically said, like, your mom keeps phoning me and she thinks I'm telling you not to come and see her. Like, go and see your mom at some point. So we sow the seeds that he should go and see his mom at some point. But I guess the next person we have, is it the?
I think it might be the library thing when he goes and he sees himself in the mirror.
Yeah, of course.
In the lifts.
Yeah.
And there's the blonde librarian who's like cheeky.
Yeah. Tony's a cheeky fellow, and he goes in the lift, and we get some horror here where he sees what's his name? The Sherman version of the Candyman having a peek down at him from the entirely mirrored elevator.
Yeah.
Gives him a little smile. Blood comes out. He gets a sweetie. Gives him one. Says, "Oh, sweetie!" But then he goes to open it. Bloody razor blade in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was quite a good scare, I think. And there was obviously a funny moment as well where the lift opened and everyone was ready to get in. I feel like I wanted him to deliver a line, something like, I hate lifts, as he walked out or something, because he kind of like awkwardly like walks out like, just saw the Candyman.
Should have just said that, just saw the Candyman.
So get the next one, lads. It's Candyman in that one.
My hand stinks.
There's a couple of from here, I think there's a couple of things that happen. One is a really strange aside with Brianna. She has a weird memory of her dad committing suicide. It's like, I believe I can fly. I believe that, and he doesn't. He dies, and I'm like, that's a weird little element to chuck in there, because that doesn't get brought up again, I don't think.
Because he mentions like her dad was also a famous artist, right? And they say, oh, she speaks with her brother, who is a fellow from Misfits, saying, "Oh, we're going to display his stuff." Is like, no, I don't want anything to do with that, and that's where we get the.
I guess it's just the character development.
Yeah, we get again. This is the thing. We get a lot of even things that aren't fully realized, and maybe these are holdovers that we'll see later. And if this is an ongoing concern and we see more episodes, maybe we'll see more of this past here, or maybe it's just background color into how. This whole thing about the cycle of misfortune, the cycle of tragedy, and the cycle of violence that goes between these characters that they're all impacted by. It could just be background for this, right? But we see, you're right. Her dad commits suicide. He thinks about it every night and day, spread his wings and fly away, but he doesn't. Falls out the window. And
we see that tragedy kind of like propels Brianna's career forward as well. So she gains notoriety. She's got notoriety for that her dad killed himself, and she's the daughter of a famous artist. But then she gets more notoriety because she was curating the gallery where two people were murdered, and that sort of opens an opportunity for her to like possibly get a job at like a big museum in New York.
Yeah, I also got the feeling that she didn't want to be. I got a feeling that she didn't want to make her bones or her career based on the death of her father.
Yeah.
And also, it seems like she's now getting this leg up because of Anthony's painting art piece and the people who died around that and that kind of notoriety. Yeah, it is interesting. It does kind of play into it.
some people are coming from the big city and they're going to meet for dinner tonight. And she says to Anthony, it's a big deal. Like, don't mess this up.
Don't order lasagna.
Yeah, it's like, oh God. Like,
And he goes,
if they bring you, when the waiter comes over, these important people are coming over, right? When the waiter comes over, just say your food. Don't ask for ketchup. Do not. Or if we're having burgers, no.
Don't show your zombie hand, whatever you do.
On this occasion, right? Just for once, like, I know everyone prefers chips to salad, but these guys are coming. Like, if they give you the choice, have the salad, not the chips. A jacket at a push, but you're sleeping on the sofa.
When do they like fall out? And she.
That's after the dinner, and when he goes, "Oh, it's the bloody Candyman," because first he goes for an interview with the art critic, who, again, quite transparently, and I guess this feeds into the whole point about the gentrification and what the notice is coming in here. Like, she was quite dismissive of his work. And obviously he made that comment about how artists are responsible for gentrification as, the white communities and the business owners that kind of push the original occupants out and price them out of these neighborhoods. But now she's very complimentary of the work. Anthony's talking about how it's likely to be a series, and she is quite engaged with it because obviously this is a critic who is now thinking, well, actually, she's not going to publish she's not in the critics column. Yeah, that works dime a dozen. You're getting paid for a couple of columns. She could do an actual news article now, right? That is going to get more publicity. So she's really interested and engaged in his artwork now. And this is where we first see with Tony going, what you could do, to really connect with this piece, you got to go and say his name in your really high-end, installed bathroom. You could go on, nip off the loo and say Candyman in the mirror a few times now. And she goes
quite
to
like
do
the
that.
build up to this bit where he's looking in the mirror and
sees his hands going all gammy, and goes out and he sees the Shermanator in the mirror instead of himself.
Yeah. And obviously a bit where this is where you're kind of supposed to think, I got the notion that he was going to become possessed or become the next Candyman somehow.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like
classic Freddy 2 scenario.
He sees himself and moving, is sort of following him. I kind of thought it was going to go a certain way, but I don't know. By the time the climax happened, I don't know, his transformation into Candyman, it didn't go the way I expected it to. But yeah, this is a pretty good sustained sort of tense moment, and which is obviously interrupted by the critic coming out of the bathroom, and she says, "I'd leave it 10 minutes in there because I've been
saying Candyman."
Yeah, been saying.
Do
Candyman.
we see her again? Apologies.
No, she doesn't say it at all. I think in the trailer she says it, but in this one we doesn't. I completely forgot of a random bit of a random side plot where we see a young girl at the sort of like a teenage girl at the art installation, and then later on we see her at school. I almost feel like that this movie could have done without that whole subplot.
Yeah.
Does that exist?
Does that exist
have some for body count?
Yeah, I think so.
Because it like that one scene that comes.
It felt unnecessary, and also I felt like
gives a cutaway in the third act, but it kind of doubles the movie's body count.
It does, but also I felt like, Candyman, he's got things on. You know what I mean? He's terrorizing like all these areas. He got to like zip around the world like bloody Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, delivering if anyone says his name. Is it like the bat signal where he hears it? He's like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I think
where Kuala Lumpur?
Do you think in the mirror dimension you can just teleport to any mirror, or is the mirror dimension an entire world that you have to still travel around in real time? So has he got to go and catch a plane, or is he just got to move around through reflective surfaces in real time?
I reckon it's like Monsters Inc., where instead of doors,
mirrors
moving around is mirrors.
Seen the mirror world in Mighty Boosh. There's like 17 mirrors.
Oh yeah,
you've got to pick the right mirror. Look at them shine.
Look at them shine. Look at them shine.
So those girls, she dares them to say Candyman 5 times in the mirror, and then we get a pretty cool glimpse, I will say, of basically they're getting slaughtered, and we see like a reflection, and we see Candyman kind of hovering across the bathroom. I thought, ooh, that's pretty creepy. And there's like some horrendous sounds of like
there might be a little gap
watermelons
between that,
being
but yeah, you're
eaten.
right. And
The floaty legs was a new stylistic choice, right? That didn't happen in the original.
Well,
yeah,
I,
in the
well,
90s,
I thought
Candyman
that.
was walking.
I thought that, but then my mate Dieter said no, because he watched it the night before he watched this one, and I'm glad he did because I didn't realize how linked the films were going to be. But he said there was like one scene where Tony Todd's like floating towards someone. We don't see his legs float. We just sort of, I imagine he's on a skateboard or something. But like, so I think there is an element of that. But this film really
Tony Hawk,
Tony Hawk Todd. So I think they just took that to the next step, really. Well, not step, obviously.
With this whole scene as well, though, with these teenagers, you're right, Ben. So like, this is someone who we saw in a throwaway vision in the art gallery scene. I mean, one of these girls says Candyman 6 times because she says it once before they all start saying it.
So
Is it meant to just kind of be an example of
the urban legend shredding
idea virus? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so she's picked that up. She's spread that to the school. Someone else is going to hear her talking about it, and then it's just going to build up.
Because one of them escapes, isn't it? Because one of the girls, after they say Candyman a couple of times, and then there's like a knock at the thing before the Candyman has been able to do the central locking. She goes, "Nah, I'm out." And so I'm guessing that.
I think it's just the spreading of the idea.
You've got a logical bit here that then you could assume if you're writing your own follow-ups to this that there is one character that escaped that scene that goes, "Oh, we are playing like there is someone to tell that story of." Oh, and there's someone else we know because another student comes in and they're kind of bullying her because she's hungover apparently. And she's locked in the cubicle the other time. But you say, look, this is a unusual scene because there's that absolutely fantastic stuff in the compact mirror with him floating, as you mentioned. But then the scene also suffers from the same, I don't know, the slightly more conservative approach in the early bit of the scene where literally it's almost it's a little bloodless to begin with, right? Because one of the girls walks around the corner and you just see the books drop to the floor. And then they see, before it all really kicks off, a lot of it is done where a number of the girls are kind of looking through the cubicles and just seeing blood come down. Like it's a lot of off-shot stuff that happens when we're assuming these people get killed. And, I don't need to see teenage girls slashed up, but
the sound does a lot to help though. I mean, it's some of the sounds are horrendous.
I just felt. I mean, I liked some of it, but I just felt like it felt like it was from a different movie. It felt like it was like added in just as a, I don't know, just so we could see that moment in the trailer where there's like all of them saying Candyman in the mirror.
Yeah.
I feel like apart from that, it added nothing to the story and it felt a bit unnecessary. So
I think this is where they have the big fallout in the she goes to see him.
Yeah, Tony has already sort of showed up. He ran out of the restaurant when they heard that the art critic had been slashed up. She just dies off camera, right?
Well, no, because she dies. It pans out from her window. And then we see
her like ragdolling around.
And get like there's like a big bloody smear across the window as well. So
but again, it's not. It's
missed that. I thought I didn't miss it. I had to run for a wee, big Coke. But
but it's like every opportunity where it's like this could get pretty brutal. It always chooses to be a little bit timid with it. I don't know. I mean, I just found like it wasn't. Maybe it's because I'm a 35-year-old man now and not an 8-year-old kid or whatever. But it's just not as primarily scary as the first one. It probably is the 30-year difference. I imagine.
You were watching the original Candyman in a world where you hadn't watched Itchy the Killer.
Yeah,
like you haven't had an entire season of that filmmaker's films. We were talking. Sorry, I'm blanking on his name. You hadn't watched an entire season of
Takashi Miike.
Yeah, Takashi Miike, like life-changing horror movies.
Yeah, this is true.
So in many ways, like some of that is burnt out of you. There's a great deal of desensitization, I guess. We are,
I mean,
speaking on a horror podcast almost 200 episodes in. You've seen a lot, maybe a take from someone who doesn't watch horror. I saw this on my own because Karen wouldn't come. She found the trailer too much.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it will be scary for a lot of people. I think towards the end of this film, there's a bit where I'm like, oh, that is quite Clive Barker-y. I would say it has that flavor of Clive Barker, which is kind of grotesque. Like it's to the point where it's almost sickening, sort of what you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for the most part, it wasn't. It didn't really have that Clive Barker sickness to it.
So to bring us to plot then, so Tony he ran out of the restaurant at that big meeting with the people from New York who were asking the girlfriend to come to the big city, not tiny cities like Chicago. Come to New York City. He has run out of the room at learning that the art critic has been killed, and then we have this scene where she walks in and he's going mad saying, "Oh, bloody hell! I've only summoned the Candyman, haven't I? What are you talking about?" Tells the story. Troy, the brother, who has some great lines of dialogue, just pointing out saying, "Oh, it's a piece of shit. No dick is good enough that that it's worth this madness." So it's kind of fallen apart relationship wise. The teenagers are doomed, and this is where Tony goes to see his mom, and we get the big reveal.
Well, I think he goes to the hospital first. He finally has enough of his horrible, what looks like acid dipped hand. Goes to the hospital to get checked out. Apparently gets sorted out. I don't know what special cream they've got there.
Yeah.
But they seem to go, "You're fine. You're fine to go now." And then he immediately goes. So it's quite striking, this look of him. He's like in these overalls that he's been painting in. He's been painting all these pictures, which kind of look like all the different iterations of Candyman. Some look like Tony Todd, some look like Sherman, some look like, possibly him. So he's walking around in his sort of like paint stained overalls. That's quite a striking image, I think, when he's sort of like walking,
so too. Yeah.
When he's walking sort of like misty eyed, well, like almost like zombified walking, and he goes to see
neck is starting to.
He's starting to. It's like it's almost like he's turning into honeycomb, right? So his skin is all flecked.
What's that term like you always see, like people who are scared of the
tiny holes? Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
But it's like they're trying to play into that.
Tryptophobia or something like that. It's
Tryptophobia. Yeah. Aversion to the sight of irregular patterns or clusters of small holes or bumps.
Yeah. If you have that, that's going to be getting you. But the cream hasn't worked at the hospital because he's getting worse. We give this a few more minutes, he's going to look like the 90s film version of Spawn if we're not very careful. Not a big CGI cape, just all Bernie. So he is still not very well. He's on the way and sees his mom, and this is where we get the reveal that he was the bye-bye that Helen was going to wang in the fire.
And we find out the truth of that story, right? Is it here where it's like Helen actually saved him?
Yeah.
They decided to never mention it to him ever again, or to keep him shielded. And I think the idea.
The funniest thing happened when you were a baby. Let me tell the story. It's a funny story. It's not. It's not a funny story.
I guess this is why Helen was rejected from the Candyman League. And this is why she's the sugar woman.
Yeah.
If she actually saved him, she's like, I don't want to be a Candyman.
Because Tony Todd had eyed him up to be the next Candyman. The baby as the Candyman. I got the impression that was maybe what they were suggesting.
Profiling because Tony Todd, isn't it? Just because he's also called Tony.
Yeah. But he'd been off the grid because they'd never spoken about Candyman, and now they've been looking into him.
And someone has they say that someone has broken the pact. So obviously it's our friend from the laundromat who has kind of broken that word and brought the Candyman into his life.
Although I think it would mean a complete rewrite, do you think they should have not used Shermanator as a stand-in Candyman and just had Tony Todd being like, "Be my victim, be my Tony, be my Candyman," and it's just like,
I think, unfortunately, like it kind of benefited from the finale and the reveal of another certain character and his intentions surrounding the Candyman legend, that there was someone else who'd been the Candyman as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It would have to be a complete rewrite because a lot of the logic of the story wouldn't make sense anymore.
Of course, yeah.
But
you kind of need many. Yeah, you're right. You kind of need several to do this. In fact, if it hadn't have cost them more in actors and makeup, even without them being explained, you could have even done with some more visuals of other Doctor Who Candymans. One where he's David Tennant, one where he's
I would have liked maybe some of that. Like, but even if it was like it just wasn't Sherman all the time. Like if it was like a different one, that would actually be pretty cool. If it was like one from the 1850s, and then like he'd look in the reflection in one time, and it would be like a disco Candyman.
One where he's got like a Frankie says relax.
Futuristic Candyman. Or an 80s Candyman. A 90s Candyman. Rave Candyman.
But I mean, like, it would introduce this, it would maybe further cement this idea that there's a lineage and like there's a lot of them. And they've all got.
And you could be different. You could have had Christina Aguilera as one of them.
Helen could have been there at one point.
Helen, but after we just said it, Helen turned against her. She was the sugar lady.
Yeah. But it's always Sherman. And that's fair enough. But so he goes to see his the laundryman.
The laundryman.
The laundryman tells him, I can't really. He tells him the Daniel Robitel story now.
Yeah, he
gives him the idea that there's been loads of us. There was a disco one, Robo one, and the Daniel Robitel story, I think, is I don't know, it's really kind of powerful. Like, it really is cool as well when he's telling them about. It's like there's an artist who took the fancy of the subject to his painting, was the daughter of a wealthy something or other,
like a factory owner or something like that, right?
Yeah, and then as a sort of the factory owner got really angry and set a load of men on him, but said make it interesting or have fun with it or something like that. And they cut off his hand, stuck a meat hook in there. They covered his body in honey and let the bees sting him, and then they set him on fire. Which is quite...
unfortunate for Daniel Robitel, but fortunate for that insane factory owner that he just happens to have commissioned a load of like installation artists to do it. I can imagine that most people aren't that imaginative. It's like, what
are we doing now? We're going to cover him in honey and let the bees sting him.
We're going to kick him. Like,
this may not have actually happened though. So a lot of this, I got the impression, was that like it's the story you tell in your head that makes it real. We think that Sherman gave candy with giant raisins in them, so now we see Sherman giving candies with raisins in them. Like we kind of build this kind of thing up in the head, and that's what kind of makes. So maybe he did get the hook in his hand and set on fire, but maybe they didn't pour honey on him and attack him with bees. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Would bees get you just for having honey on you?
No, I don't think so, because that's just, you're just covered in food, aren't you, at that point?
That's my honey. Sting the shit out of you.
Oh, I'm dead. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that Winnie the Pooh. I've heard about him. Get him. And it's and it's told in a different way, right? Because it would have been impractical to do the flashbacks to it. So this is where
the shadow puppets.
Yeah, it's done with the shadow puppets. Okay. For those on video, it's Ben has it behind him right now.
Yeah,
I have a bit of Candyman here. It's done. It's done nicely, and it isn't dwelled upon too long. But this is one of the nice touches that captures the original story and brings it up to there. Like I don't remember this at all. I should have really looked it up before we came on there. Like, it would have been cool if Sherman was one of the others as well. Like, if the Sherman story was actually Candyman 3, that would be great. But obviously you can't rewrite the past.
So whenabouts do we see the part where you see another flashback where it shows Sherman as a kid again, but this time the Candyman gets his sister and I guess her friend as well. where they're saying we're
They
doing a
won't let
bloody
him play.
we're an
I think
adults
it's
game.
here.
You're a
I think it's
baby,
right here. Yeah.
and they
Oh,
do
yeah.
they do the Candyman thing. Immediately get killed, and obviously William sees
William, yeah.
the bodies, but also sees Sherman in the reflection. So like he's again seeing
Impacted by this legend of Sherman. Although William is a conundrum in himself, which is like, let me come in. I'm not a baby. I can do this. She's, oh, you are a baby, though, because if you don't let me in, I'm going to piss on your bed. He goes,
Yeah.
Babies piss the bed, William. Come on. You're
And he gets-
playing into
I mean, who's
her
going to be
hands.
washing that? Who's going to be taking that to the laundry?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, why would you do that? I'm gonna shit on your bed as well. Do it. How dare you? Oh, clean. What are you doing here? Cleaning my own shit. Harrison. So Brianna like comes back to get some stuff, but when Anthony's not there, she becomes a bit concerned because obviously last time she saw him, he was in a state of distress. She remembers Anthony saying that he'd heard the Candyman story from Burke, the guy at the laundromat. So she goes there. She goes to like Cabrini Green and goes looking for him. But when she goes to the laundromat,
Guess
It's
who's
like
locked the door?
gets like locked. Oh yeah, it's old central lock in Candyman. She gets
Yeah.
locked in the back room, and then suddenly Burke appears and like grabs her, subdues her, and I guess knocks her out because the next time we see it, she's waking up all tied up
In the
Yeah.
church in Cabrini Green.
in the church in Cabrini Green with all the graffiti. What's spray painted on the wall? Is it? There's some
Oh,
words, isn't
can't
there?
remember. Yeah.
Candyman was here.
Candyman warrior.
Was here.
So,
And Anthony, this is what is annoying is that Anthony at this point from here, where like it seems like he's getting somewhere, he's doing all his research, things are starting to click together. Suddenly, he's just off screen. He becomes subdued by William, and now he's like a passenger.
just
in
like
this-
a puppet,
in
isn't
this
he? He's just
final
sat
act.
there.
So obviously he's
just-
gone full Candyman. Obviously all of his skin is sort of taken on this, and his eyes are sort of glazed over. He's in like a bit of a fugue state because then William like starts doing some horrible stuff to him and he doesn't even flinch, so cuts his hand off.
See, this is the thing, though. Right? I think this is where it's a little bit of a disconnect, and maybe there's a subtlety that I've missed in watching this film, and maybe you guys have seen it, or maybe it is a flaw in it. I feel like I could live with him being in kind of a weird fugue state if now it was a Candyman, if it was the Shermanator doing this to him, or there was more of a supernatural. But it seems strange that he is a passenger when it is simply, Doc Cotton, the laundromat worker that is chopping his hand off and whacking a hook in there.
Yeah.
It seems strange that there's not a supernatural element to this transformation. It's literally just a normal man sawing his arm off remarkably quickly and whacking a hook in there.
Like he's done it before.
It's weird. So he says like, I think you put the hook in there. The idea, I think the plan is, you put the hook in there, you make him look like a bit of a Candyman character, and then you get the police to shoot him, or get him to die in some horrendous way, and then they will talk about him and be like, we killed the Candyman, and they will the legend will be alive again.
You build into that legend,
but he kills
you're
everyone.
right.
Like he kills. There's no one talking about Candyman from that point. That specific that instance of Candyman anyway. The Sherman one, I guess, is still knocking around.
Yeah,
It
I
seems
guess
like it seems like those instances of Candyman are one and the same now. They all embody the same sort of spectre, I guess.
Yeah, we come to it though, and we do get that. But yeah, his plan basically is you've kicked off the cycle again by telling this story. He knew that the baby that was in the Helen situation of the 90s would be drawn back there, and this whole cycle would begin anew, and there'd be a new Candyman. You hear him make a phone call to the police saying, "Oh, it's that blooming artist. He's running around. He's got a hook. He's shouting about things."
Okay, maybe that
Let's get
phone
done
call
quick.
is enough to kick the flames of the legend a bit more. I don't know.
So that's happening, and we do get some instruction at the very end when we see the old Double T. But he is, it all seems to happen very quickly here. Like this all wraps up super, super quickly. So his hand has been chopped off and it's happened. And then William he kind of pursues and is stabbed to death, right?
Well, yeah, she breaks out. She has like a little pen or something, and she uses that to run away into this really creepy tunnels underneath the church. We hear like a horrendous noise, like a cutting sound, and the next time and then in the darkness, he's been chased by William. The next time we see William, his mouth is completely covered in blood, and we can't understand what he's saying. Like, I think he's cut his tongue out, or something's happened to his tongue. I think maybe Candyman cut his tongue out or something. But like that's like one of those films that I'm thinking maybe that got cut out.
You know what he's been doing, hasn't he? He's been thought, just have one of these sweets. You need to look at the packaging. And
he's had that one from Sherman for
I'm going to
years.
have one of these sweets to celebrate. My plan finally coming together.
And it's a Sherman original, and it's got the
Sherman's original. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So if you bite into a Werther's original, that butterscotch candy will make razor sharp shards if you don't suck it. If you bite into it, so razor blade or not. So what he's done is he's got a standard Werther's, not one of the toffees, one of the hard ones. He's bitten into it. And but you suck them though nicely. Don't bite into them. Dangerous.
Yeah, Werther's original, but what's the not original?
There's a new Werther's.
Werther's Nouveau original.
Yeah, like you get those toffee ones, don't you? So they're safer. But if you just bite those regular Werther's, that's what William's done. He's cut his tongue right off.
He chases her through the tunnels, and they come out in one of the houses in Cabrini Green. And he's like, what I was trying to say.
I was reminded of The Simpsons when they're making the breakfast and his tongue gets still caught in the beaters. Luther, my tongue is put in the beaters.
The bookie, man. And then, wait, so what happens to him?
So Brianna like stabs him with a pen in the eye.
Right.
And then just pretty much stabs him to death. Anthony appears and says, I think he's dead. But then it collapses into her arms from shock, I guess, from having his arm cut off.
His arm off,
meat hook jabbed in there. But obviously the police arrived. And this is what I was confused by. The police arrive and they kind of immediately, from seeing him in the Candyman costume, immediately walk in and shoot him to death. I was just a bit confused because initially I thought they'd shot Brianna.
Yeah, because she kind of like, it's in the dark, I know, and she kind of pauses and puts her hands in. I imagine again, and we're nitpicking here as well, but I think even the most corrupt and trigger happy police, would you shoot someone who is collapsed on the floor?
Yeah, I mean, they've been pretty warned that
the Candyman's knocking about, going mad. I mean,
they're probably a bit scared already. Oh, this guy's killed loads of teenage girls and people. Might be a bit trigger happy.
But he's absolutely fucked at this point. I think you could be forgiven for walking in and thinking he was already dead.
They only shoot loads of rounds into him as well.
Yeah,
it's not just like a couple.
Yeah, they're literally they're firing, they're blazing away. But you know, for whatever the reason, I think you could have done something. Bearing in mind the creativity and the striking visuals that we get in some scenes of this movie, I think we could have got a more spectacular and a more, putting the blame, the shoulders of blame more realistically on the police's shoulders here than it did when literally. I think Anthony is off shot when, he's at very, like, if he's on screen at all, he's in the lower portions of the screen. Just sort of kind of collapsed in his girlfriend's arms there. But
we could have had a moment where somehow Anthony managed to pull himself out of this fugue state briefly to save Brianna or help Brianna in some way. And maybe at the very key moment where it seemed like he gets a hero's moment, he's shot by police.
Yeah.
That could have been more effective.
Yeah, you could have had him. Yeah. You could have had him finish off William. Like William could have come back for a classic like scream, and final jump scare.
Please see him killing William and go, "It's the killer!" And then I mean, maybe
it's
that's
the blowing Candyman.
Watch out for sweets. Yeah,
it could have been that could have been important in terms of perception. in terms of the police's perception in the situation and regarding people of color, then they would have, I feel like it would have worked. It would have worked a lot.
They cuff Brianna, put her in the back of the car, and I think by this point, I don't know how I felt about this scene, to be perfectly honest. They were like, the policeman is like, we'll do a deal with you. I don't know, Candyman was bad and we shot him for a good reason, or you were bad and we're going to put you in prison.
Basically, I think the policeman has realized that they've clearly discharged their weapons on a injured or dying man already. So it's, like you see in the news far too many times, I guess, that it's the cover your ass mentality, right? Of, oh well, you'll clearly say that this is like overtly corrupt police.
Yeah,
but
I think it was a bit. I completely understand what it was trying to do, and I understand that these things happen a lot in this way or not. It felt a bit heavy-handed for me in terms of the way that it was done, but maybe it's just like the way this whole ending was done felt a bit heavy-handed. So the fact that this was like an exclamation point on that ending, I just found it all a bit.
It's kind of pushed for time. I think with more time, you could add some more subtlety to it because of the time they're left to work with. Basically, the policeman has to be quite overtly corrupt and terrible and racist to say, oh, maybe you could agree with us that there was a dangerous Candyman here and we shot him completely naturally and no one was in the wrong. Or, we could say you're his accomplice. Maybe you held people down while he chopped them up and maybe you go to prison forever. So Brianna basically says, okay, I tell you what, let us see myself in the mirror and then I will say whatever you want. Policeman goes, oh, well, fair enough then. Here you go. Here's the mirror. And she goes, Candyman. What? Candyman. You're saying Candyman? Candyman.
Just say it really quick.
Yeah.
Wait, you could just go, whoa. Nearly got me
there. Whoa.
Yeah.
You nearly had me there. I knew your game. Trying to Candyman me.
Yeah, I mean, so I think she only says it 4 times, but because he's quite near, he hears it. He's like, oh,
it's enough to central lock that car.
He heard.
Yeah, so he central locks the car, and then he basically gets all the other policemen from the mirror dimension, and then he comes to the window, and the last policeman gets out of the car, runs into the alley, and gets got as well. Probably, I guess, as overt and as brutal as the movie has been throughout. And maybe this is, if it's not a cutting thing from the studio, maybe that is a deliberate choice after all to escalate the violence to the point we get in this final bit there. And then, as scary as there being a hook-wielding Candyman, there's loads of bees around him. No one wants that. End of summer as it is, this is when wasps and bees are at their most dangerous. They'll be around the bins.
Just trying to find a picture of like his final form, Anthony, and because I think it was pretty cool. Like he's completely covered in bees and he's hovering around and he's got like a really sharp hook. Like his hook's his angle.
That's the sharpest hook I've ever seen.
I mean, Tony Todd's looked more like a coat hanger kind of hook, like a little bobble on the end of it. But this one looks like, I don't know. Do you even get meat hooks that look that sharp? I don't know.
Pretty gruesome.
But yeah.
Appears as Tony Todd, and he helps with this. I guess the final button on the movie is he appears as Tony Todd. Nice cameo from the man himself. And he
it's
says,
the first time we hear his voice in that echoey way. She thinks she's in the car, and we hear Anthony speaks in that echoey voice. I think it sounded great. I would like a lot more of that.
As he's walking around the car, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the Candyman flavor.
And we see more of. As he's walking around the car, in terms of the reflections, we see all the different versions of Candyman as well as he passes each window.
You see all of them. You see Tony Todd to finish, and he goes, "Hey, opposite to Fight Club, I guess. Tell everyone."
Yeah, well, maybe
there's only one rule of Candy Club.
Yeah,
tell everyone.
Everyone.
Candies are great.
And that's it.
weirdly talking. I mean, we'll get to the ratings in a sec, but weirdly talking about it is actually kind of. I don't know, I think I'm seeing it in a bit of a better light. But before that, name game. You guys
ready? Oh yes.
Okay. So this film I saw you say this guy's name 5 times in the mirror when you've got like a dodgy light bulb that needs changing or an IKEA desk that needs building. Any ideas what that one's called?
Handyman.
Say this 5 times in the mirror when you're in need of a fireman or maybe a good dad type or someone with a traditionally man-like qualities, whatever that means in today's day and age.
Oh.
Fireman type.
Father figure man.
Well, like a kind of, I mean, you could have a mustache, like burly kind of guy, probably some muscles. He probably cuts wood. He's he's a man's man, you could say.
Manly man.
Say this 5 times in the mirror when you've run out of pants and you need your grandmother to appear and give you a fresh pair.
Oh. Granny
pants.
Granny pants. Panty gran. Yeah. Good.
Say this 5 times in the mirror when you need the power and you need it to arrive in advance. So, I don't know if you're gonna get this. You need the power. And when I say the power, I mean like the power of Grayskull. And you need it to arrive in a van.
Van
He-Man. Say this 5 times in the mirror when you need a certain Mr. Conduit Turner. Oh, when a certain Mr. Conduit Turner is looking a little pale.
Andy Tan. Yeah. I mean, you guys have met around looking a little pale most of the time.
Yeah. Well, you just need to say Andy Tan 5 times in the mirror and
get that lovely healthy glow.
5 times, no more.
You'll burn. You'll peel.
If you say it 6 times, does that cancel it? Is that like
no? It's
cancel?
like Ross in Friends when he gets 5 blasts of the fake tan.
Yeah.
All right, so we need to rate the film. I don't know where I'm going to go with this now. I just say I was going to go for a C+. I was like, I don't know.
You know what's one step up from a C+, like?
I don't know. The more we're talking about the legacy aspect of it, that kind of stuff I think is really interesting and quite meaty. But I don't know if I really enjoyed the actual watching experience all that much. But I could have just been tired. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm kind of sitting on a B now.
Are you? Get up then. Don't squash it.
Don't get stung.
Don't get stung on the arse.
Get them ants to take it away. Yeah, don't get stung. You bum will go.
Oh, me arse! And then you get your arse. You'll start turning into Candyman, but arse first. So your arse will start turning into a horrible
Tony
dead
Todd's
arse.
amazing buttocks. Ooh.
Yeah. And you're peeling scabs off of it, and then you have to go to that hospital and say, anything you could do for my arse.
Yeah, but it's
rotten.
Great. What have you been doing? Turning into Candyman.
Turning
into Anthony. A librarian just like flirted with my arse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a B.
I think I'm gonna go with a B as well. And I think it would have been a lot higher because I was really enjoying it up into what felt like a really rushed and almost, I don't want to say nonsensical because it wasn't nonsensical, but a really rushed and somewhat baffling ending. I completely understand what they were going for in terms of the discussion they're trying to have, and that we're trying to invoke certain feelings and in terms of but yeah, I was just frustrated by the way it panned out and the fact that Anthony McCoy, a very interesting character who'd gone through a very interesting transition throughout the film, was reduced to being nothing more than a passenger for the finale, and a character, William Burke, who was a bit of a throwaway character, suddenly becoming like the main antagonist. I didn't quite believe it, and yeah, so only a B for me. It could have been much more if it had a better ending.
Yeah. Go on, Andy.
Wrong with a B. Well, I don't have the same stigma about it as you guys. I'm going to go for a B- on this one. Nothing too much to add. 3 Bs though, which is very on brand for the Candyman.
Pretty hive.
So full hive of bees. So a hive full of bees of this one for me, just because much the same as Ben. I think I really enjoyed some elements of the film. I think it is an absolute masterclass in taking all of the pieces of a series and finding a way to bring it to a modern audience and bringing those bits forward. I think that's great. They've done some really good work with it. They've made it relevant. They've brought it back, and they've added in some really interesting commentaries and discussions to be had of this. I think for people studying film, there are some great discussions to be had. There are great essays to be written. There are great articles to be had from this. And there are some great horror moments in there. As we mentioned as well, there is some fantastic work if you look at the effect and the mirrors, and there's some great little visual tricks there. And I think, Luke, as you mentioned as well, like seeing Sherman in the background there as well, I think if I do sit down and watch this again, there are probably some subtleties and some little touches of terror that I've missed. It'll be Hill House all over again, where there's ghosts and little whispers of things that you didn't quite catch. Yeah. But the downside to it is there are elements of the execution, I think, for me, that stop it from ascending to, the very top of the piles when you get into your high Bs and your As. Yeah. Just little elements of consistency, like the same issue with Ben, that I think there is a sudden rush to wrap this up, and rightly so. A 2-hour horror film can feel a bit too long. But I think giving that little bit more agency to the character at the end, just a little bit of the positioning, just to make some of the logic points really hit. And I think just some of that consistency in the character portrayal as well. I think even when you're killing a character off, you can give them a little bit more nuance. So, I keep coming back to this art dealer. I would have been perfectly happy to dislike him after 1 or 2 incidents of him being a dick. I don't need to make him entirely irredeemable and almost like pantomimish in a way to get rid of him. I think there is some more subtlety that you could do that to bring it slightly more in line with the great work that's done with some of the other characters in the movie. But by and large, I don't think I'll watch this again quickly. I mean, it's a cinema release. If it was something that was just on demand, maybe I would watch it again in shorter order just to try and take in the extra bits. When it turns up on streaming again in however many months, maybe I'll watch it then, but I don't think I'll go for a second run at the cinema on this one. There's interesting things enough. If I have a little break, I would be interested to see it again and see how it sits when it's a little bit more digested.
Yeah. Cool. So we'll go for B minus,
B minus, and a B. Whole hive.
B. Yeah.
Cool. So thanks for listening. I think this episode's been a long one. I think maybe a couple of hours or something. I'm not too sure. But
I'm pleased to say that we got onto the horror topics really quick. So the length of it is all full content.
Yeah. What are we doing next week now? Is it Malignant? It's not yet, is it?
No. Sliver next week. So after the James Gunn Suicide Squad, I thought we'd give James Gunn
Suicide Squad, I think.
Oh yeah, we won't.
I think you probably will have to watch Suicide Squad, Andy, because I think we'll have to bring it up at times.
Yeah, I will watch Slither, and I will have watched Suicide Squad before we get to it as well.
No pressure at all. But yeah, if you enjoyed the show, you can become a patron over at patreon.com/Hawk and Cleaver. Thanks to Kovac Kalman for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Thanks to the listeners. If you enjoyed the show, please consider rating and reviewing, and we may read it out live on air. And remember to hit subscribe and join the Facebook group Horror Hangout Board of Advisors, we're going to be doing a what do you call it? Like a poll. We're going to be doing a poll to see what film we're going to be watching at the end of the month. Is that right? Did I say that?
I think we might have to do a poll. We have to do a poll for October now. So
for episode 200.
Slight look behind the curtain. We will need to do the vote this month for next month because poor Ben has to draw each of these covers. Come on, guys, give him a rest. So we'll put a vote up pretty soon and then vote on it. And you get to choose one of the films that we will cover in October, possibly for episode 200. Who knows? But sometime, come on.
We're going to try and plan something extra special for episode 200. Who knows what that will be? It might just be us with a cake. Who knows? We've eaten 200 tiny vol-au-vents between us, so about 30 each. So, we'll be all right. We'll be all right.
Cool. I think that's it. Thanks for being Right Horror Dudes.
Nice
follow Andy at AndyC2Writes on Twitter. Follow Ben at Ben_Errington.
Correct.
Cool. And follow me at Luke of Condor, Kondor.
Awesome.
100%. Nice work.
100%.
That's fun.
Dudes.
Right,
See you next week.
Everyone. See you later. Bye.